this is my dad. He has a YouTube channel,
Yeah,
Campfire Tales, Cryptids of America. I talk a lot. What is it?
Campfire Tales, Cryptids of America.
I think that's what you said.
No.
No?
No.
He paused.
I did pause for a second.
There's no comma in there.
There's no comment. So anyway, I talk about his stories a lot.
Yeah.
The stories that him and my uncles told me, my grandmother told me. And since he already has a channel and he already talks about these kind of things anyway, I was like, let's get him on the show, and he could share, instead of me telling stories that he told me
And pausing at the wrong parts.
and pausing at the he can tell the stories from his firsthand perspective. That way I'm not butchering it, and it goes down the right way, if that makes sense. That way when we have other guests on the future, you'd be like, well, that's not what Justin's dad told me. Like this is what he saw.
And then
there.
you can get in the comments and correct him.
Yeah.
No, that's all right.
No, it's good. Comments are good for the algorithm.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell us?
Well, first of all, what's the channel to make sure, like, how long have you been doing this? I mean, we said it's Campfire Tales. I want to make sure I get it right.
Well, that's because you paused.
Yeah,
Took
yeah.
a breath.
Campfire Tales, Cryptids
of America.
of America.
Yeah.
And how long have you been doing it?
Probably 5 or 6 years.
What made you, I mean, don't take this the wrong way, but at your age, I wouldn't think my dad would wake up and say, I want to have a YouTube channel. So, like, how did you go from telling the grandkids stories, which would be my dad, to, hey, I want to record this? Was there a reason behind a YouTube channel?
Well, let's clarify a few things. Real quick. My age?
Well, like, I mean, most people wouldn't
yeah.
think at your age you would start a podcast. That's
I don't think when I started, I don't think I had grandkids.
I don't know.
He was a late bloomer.
Okay.
Justin. So, but I've always enjoyed telling stories.
Yeah.
My dad was probably one of the best storytellers ever.
really.
Yeah. He could tell you a dad joke and make you think it was real. But my daughter does a lot of YouTube, and she has her own blog and all this kind of stuff. And yeah, it hasn't taken off like Justin's did, but she has quite a following. And one day, she's like, we traveled. We don't do it right now, but we may start again before long. Just let you know. But we traveled, and our daughter and her husband would travel with us for a while. And she's like, Dad, we'd sit around a campfire at these RV parks and stuff. And she'd say, tell us a story. And then she's like, you need to start recording these stories. And then it's like, hey, you need a YouTube channel, And so that's basically how it got started.
Just to make sure that those stories lived on forever.
Well, yeah, I guess.
And share them with
long
more
as
people,
somebody
yeah.
listens to them,
Yeah.
they live on. But, when I started doing it, I decided that and by the way, I don't have people emailing me or calling me, no matter how much I beg them, please send me stuff. Nobody ever sends me anything. Nobody. So, if I come across the story, it's because, I'm telling somebody about my channel and they go, oh, let me tell you what happened to me.
Right.
That sort of thing. So I really don't have that many videos. But the first one is my own experience because, if I want you to come on and let me record your face, or even if you don't, and do a video of you, you've got to know where I'm coming from, that I'm not the kind of guy that's going to pick on you because you've had an experience.
It has to be a safe space.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And most of us,
I tell Justin sometimes when he's telling me a story, I'm like, I'm sorry if my face is betraying. Like, I'm smiling because it seems impossible, but I'm only smiling because of like the awkwardness of the moment. I'm like, I am thoroughly entertained and interested in learning about it because, I mean, it seems so unbelievable, but the more we talk about it, the more evidence And like you said, people, I mean, this happened to them.
Well, and people don't go out. Well, I shouldn't say that.
Well, there's
Most
always a few.
people don't go out looking for Sasquatch or Dogman or ghost or anything like that. And when they find one, it's like,
Right.
I'll be darned. Nobody's going to believe me.
Right.
Why was I even doing this? And, growing up, we lived in a place called Orting, Washington.
Okay.
Orting. And behind us was a mountain that they called the Puyallup Mountain.
Okay.
Now, there was always, not always, but you could count on hearing this scream coming off the mountain every day.
I mean, like clockwork.
Really? Every day.
Okay.
And so we didn't
everybody
know
knew
what it
about this.
was. We thought, somebody down the road has peacocks or whatever,
Sure.
And there was peacocks down the road.
Territorial mountain lion, something up there. Yeah.
Well, we know now that it was not a peacock or
Right.
a territorial mountain lion because there are some videos now that you can, audios that you can Google, YouTube, whatever, of Sasquatch sounds. And I promise you, you're going to find.
Why did you not bring a clip of Sasquatch sounds?
Well,
I can do it right now. Yeah.
Hey, seriously, like you can connect up and I think maybe we have to figure that out a more,
Yeah. Oh,
more
that's the wrong app.
technologically placed. But yeah, I was going to say, like, I legitimately, or can we add it in later?
I don't know.
Well, no, I mean,
Because
like,
it's like someone else's stuff. I don't really know how that.
Oh, I see what you
But,
mean. Yeah, because it could be somebody else's content.
Yeah. So here's what I'll do.
Well, then I don't know how you would add it now, though.
No, I'll just pull up so you can hear it because we never talked about this.
I mean, we can sample something for like 5 seconds. Like, doesn't matter. Like, you can show it.
Sure. Yeah, we can take.
I'm just curious because, like, I've never heard this. So when you say a peacock, I know what a peacock sounds like. So I'm curious to like, okay, like what?
No, that was just an excuse.
No, that's what I mean.
because
Like,
nobody knew what it was.
that's the sound I have, and I want to get that out of my mind while we're talking about
Yeah.
this. By like,
It's the Ohio sounds, right?
Yeah, the Ohio
trying to find it.
squalor or Kentucky squalor or something like that.
I've heard the expression Kentucky squalor.
No, it's like the Ohio. It's not actually. Okay. Oh, here's one. So this is the 1994 Ohio Bigfoot howls, and I'll just play it loud.
Okay, here.
All right, that's the Ohio sound.
Very dog-like.
No, that's
That's the dog.
Oh,
That-
that is the dog.
That in the background, that howling sound.
of howling.
Okay, all right, okay.
Yeah.
So like, okay,
There have been
okay.
and people and like skeptics. There's nothing wrong with being a skeptic, but they'll say
We should be skeptical.
they're like, oh, it's coyote, or it's a
That's not
wolf,
a
or it's a bear in heat, or something. And you would have actual zoologists, not cryptozoologists, but zoologists
right.
that
They
are,
understand the actual calls of animals.
they know how they know how to analyze sounds and things like this, and they're like, that is no sound that we know of belonging to any creature in this region. And often there's other sounds that come out further down the road, and they'll say not only does this sound not belong to anything we have on record, but given the volume of the sound that this creature is making, it is larger than any creature on record. Like it would have to be a massive animal to make a noise like that.
Yeah, there are people who say that you hear the sound, but you also feel it in your chest.
So it has a bass element to it.
It's like walking into a concert. Boom, just hits you square in the chest.
They
That's
call it
fascinating.
They call
Anyways,
it
every day.
It's infrasound. That's what they call it now. Infrasound.
Okay.
And so predators will use this, like lions. If you ever go to a zoo, like lions will make like this deep rumble.
Right.
And
very guttural.
Very guttural.
Yeah.
And like you can feel it in your like. It sounds silly. Like the first time I heard it, it's like, man, I feel that in my soul.
Well, it's like once sound gets to a certain level of hertz, you feel it more than you actually hear it. That's what that is.
But it's the thought that like predators use this to either warn or stun prey. And same thing with Bigfoot or Dogman, they'll use it to like, hey, you need to get out of
This
here.
is my territory.
You
This
start
is my
feeling
snake
that.
rattle here.
Yeah.
You know, And it's important to note that, you know, throughout the world, every place that, well, the Yeti, the Abominable Snowman, all these characters I refer to as all belonging to one family, and that's the Sasquatch family.
I said that the other day, and he literally said, no, the Yeti, that's totally different. I said, I think of them all the same. Sasquatch, Bigfoot, Yeti, they're all cousins from one family tree.
Yeah, it's kind of like
Because somebody had to have the similarities in those lores to
it's
tie
kinda
everything
like
together.
Canine or feline, you know, you have the scientific
I like that.
name, but then you branch off, you know, Siamese cat and all this kind of stuff. And in the South, it's called a wood booger.
For us, Bigfoot?
Yeah, a wood booger.
Really?
Yeah.
I've never heard of that.
Well, hope you don't ever see one. Okay.
Well, they got not just wood booger, depends on where you're at, but also like the Florida skunk ape,
The skunk ape, Honey Island swamp monster.
yeah, swamp monster. There's lots of names.
And they even tried to say the Lugaroo or Rougarou
Rougarou.
is part of the family, but
That's supposed to be a very
that's
aggressive
more,
version.
That's more of a shapeshifter type thing,
I don't know.
like kind of like a skinwalker.
I don't know.
But anyhow,
No, look. Okay, hold on. I want to defend myself because your dad doesn't know this about me. Okay, I did not know about any of this stuff until I was a young man. We'll say, like, you know, older teenager. I was married. I had kids. I started watching TV shows, and of course, things like the X-Files. Right. That was my first introduction to pretty much anything in the paranormal, cryptozoology, any of that. It always came from an entertainment standpoint.
yeah,
Not trying to say that I think these stories are only of entertainment value, because this is where the defense part comes in, as we've talked about before. Those stories are passed down across multiple civilizations for a reason. Obviously, we have some similarities in bedtime stories that were passed down to children through, the Middle Ages, and Hansel and Gretel, Beauty and the Beast. There's some like philosophical similarities in those stories. Listen to your parents. Be brave, but don't be too sure of yourself. I mean, there's parables.
don't go out at night.
Yeah,
like that.
Little things like that. Don't sneak out at night because Pinocchio.
The
They'll
booger
pick you
man
up
will
and
get you.
take you to the island, right? All of those kind of stories are to teach lessons, but they always have a different boogeyman. They always say it's a different story. They teach a lesson, some even the same, but they're always different. Aesop's fables, giant book of stories, but every character, every story is different. There has to be a legitimate reason, I don't know what it is, why people in the Tibetan mountains have a story about a 7-8 foot tall monkey looking Yeti thing that, I'm sorry, matches up pretty darn close with the exact same cave paintings we have in North America from Indians that have never met. That's not I don't believe in coincidences. Something had to have happened. I don't know what it is. And if anybody goes like, "Oh, that's so stupid," Sasquatch. Oh, it's Bigfoot.
Well,
I would say like, okay, cool. Like, don't believe it if you don't want to. But I come from an entertainment standpoint. But what's the line from the X-Files? I want
Truth is
to
out there?
believe.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I want to believe because it is so fascinating because it's unexplainable.
Well,
Yeah.
you brought this up before. What? How do I want to put this? We're talking about the Tasmanian tiger. We've talked about this before. What? How would you classify a Tasmanian tiger?
A dog. I mean, like in my mind, it's kind of like,
You think it's a canine?
yeah, I would think of it like a canine, kind of like in the hyena family. It
not.
could be wrong, but looking at the pictures, I figure it's a cat because it's a tiger,
It's
but
not a cat.
really?
Yeah,
I'm thinking more of a raccoon family.
it's a marsupial, or it was a marsupial. So you have this.
It's an ROUS?
You have this thing called concurrent evolution, where you have. This isn't like the debate evolution, right? But according to the theory,
Adaptation,
if you-
evolution, creation,
Well,
however you want to get
if
to
you
the
put
point.
organisms in similar environments, they're going to develop similar
They adapt
adaptations.
similarly.
So
Absolutely.
if you look at a Tasmanian tiger, a thylacine, you'd be like, that's either a dog or a cat. No, far from it. It was a marsupial.
It's a possum.
Yeah.
It's a dog-sized possum.
Yeah.
That's why I cracked.
That'll eat you.
That's why I cracked the joke. It's an ROUS from the.
ROUS.
Oh God, it's from that movie. Oh my God, no. The Princess Bride. When he goes into the forest, he goes the
that's why I
ROU
didn't
rodents of unusual size.
Oh, rodent of usual size.
He goes, it's an ROUS. So like that's all I can picture now.
Yeah.
But I mean,
But my point is,
that's fat. Like, and that's not. I'm sorry to sound ignorant. That's not debatable. Like, I mean, that's if I Google search Tasmanian tiger,
no, it's definitely a marsupial.
it is a marsupial.
It was.
How did I not know that?
It lived long enough to be documented. It had pouches. It raised its young in its pouch.
No.
Yeah.
There are some now that are reported being seen, making a comeback, but they're very few and far between.
A Tasmanian tiger had a pouch like a kangaroo.
Yeah, that's the main part of being a marsupial.
No, yeah,
Like
but
one of the, not the main part, but one of the main things that they look at when they're trying to classify if it's a marsupial or not. They'll have a pouch, and the nipples or udders or whatever inside the pouch, and its young are born really small. They go inside the pouch, and that's where they develop most of their life, most of their youth.
wow.
Yep.
I didn't know that.
Not only that,
They had
but
a protective youth.
Well, it's not just that. Like, I mean, like I said, I watched like the X-Files or something. I don't remember the episode where they're like, oh, hey, by the way, Tasmanian tigers are in the kangaroo family.
yeah.
If you
Also-
gave me 10 guesses, I would have never guessed
Well,
that.
Well, that's
I doubt they ever said that on the X-Files.
Well, yeah, but that's what I mean. Like,
Yeah.
just,
but there's also videos, and another interesting thing about the Tasmanian tiger is that it can open its jaws 180 degrees.
wait,
so
180
like-
is like completely flat.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a very interesting creature. But my point is we're talking about like Bigfoot and like these analogous creatures in Asia, and people would say like, hey, well, why would it be the same thing everywhere? Well, because
Because it adapted
similar
differently.
environments, adaptation.
Why does a Yeti have white fur versus our Bigfoot that lives up in Washington would have brown fur?
But there's also different
versus the red fur of Oklahoma because of the clay and like
The
this.
red dirt, yeah.
Right. I mean, it makes perfect sense why they would. Why do
But-
butterflies look different?
But the study of this creature has come so far that they even have it classified into like different types. Different types. You have some that look very
Different types of Tasmanian tigers.
No, going back to Bigfoot.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The different types of Bigfoot, just in North America. Yeah. So
Okay,
there's,
we're gonna need like a legitimate tree at some point because I mean I would love to actually see that.
You're
Yeah.
going to have to explain some of these. What are they broken down into tribes or just
not necessarily tribes, but you have some that like
geographical?
Patty off the Patterson footage. You have some that look like that, which are fairly they're ape-like, but they're also humanoid. You have some that look much more humanoid. They're just very hairy and they live in the woods. You have some that look very ape-like. You have some that are almost look like Lord of the Rings orcs, and they're highly aggressive. Some classifications also put dogmen in there somewhere.
Well, if you look at some civilizations and cultures kind of throughout history, you have things like similarities that are also very different. Here in North America, we have like the Native American tribes, and the Chippewa were very different from the Comanche, which were very different from numerous other cultures, even though they were all humans, just simply the way they dressed, their style of agriculture, architecture, whatever you want to call it, made them different. And the animal kingdom is identical. Brown bears behave very differently and look very differently than black bears. You've got whole varieties of birds. I mean, we would say they're all birds, but obviously you have everything from a toucan to a hummingbird are very different animals. So it would make sense why something like this would be so different. But
There are stories from Native American tribes here in the Americas. Okay,
Right.
that their clans, their tribes, knew of tribes of the big hairy people, and
he was talking about this, that they literally like recorded battles.
yeah, and they got along together and traded with one another until somebody made somebody mad, or tried to marry.
I guess I've never thought of them being that advanced that they would have like they would understand the concept of trade, right? I mean, I think of them as a dog. We wouldn't think of like making an offering of trade to
They're
a.
wild animals, but they're not.
They're not animals.
Well, they're not animals, and talking about their appearance, the one that I saw was best described as a giant Neanderthal,
Caveman.
8 foot tall, 750 pounds.
Well, let's hear that whole story.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We did kind of go off on a tangent there.
Let's
Like,
hear the whole story.
Well, let me back to Orting again, okay? Because
yeah. Wow.
Well, we never saw this creature in Washington, and we lived in Washington and Oregon a lot of my youth.
And I've been up to the redwood forests and things up in that part of the country. So, I mean,
And we spent
you could be there a lifetime and never see it all.
yeah, I mean,
That's a
they'd be
key
standing
point.
right next to you.
Yeah.
And we spent a tremendous amount of time out in the woods. We learned how to. We didn't go into a tree blind or anything hunting deer or elk or bear. We stalked them.
Right. You actually hunted.
We hunted them.
I hate it when people in Texas say that they hunt deer. I'm like, no, you don't. You feed it. You pour corn on the ground, and then you pick one.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's not hunting.
I'm not trying to get us kicked out of the great state of Texas or anything.
It's a different hunting. Yeah.
We, as kids will do,
Right.
you boys stay off that mountain, okay? The Puyallup Mountain or whatever it actually is. As soon as the parents went into town to buy groceries, guess where everybody went?
Up to the mountains.
Up to the mountain.
Yeah.
And we found there was a ravine. The hill's coming down, a ravine down the middle, and there's a log tree that is laying in the ravine, and it's slick.
Okay.
It had been being used
As a path.
slide.
As a slide.
As a slide. And there was long reddish brown hair on it and humongous footprints around it,
That's so crazy.
And now I'm in like the second grade. My oldest brother is in like the fourth, fifth, something like that. And so we're like, hey, let's get out of here because that's the big hairy man that they told us lives
Why
up
they
here on
say
the mountain.
don't go up to the mountains.
Yeah. And so, hey, we got to tell mom and dad about this. No, we don't either.
No, we weren't
because
supposed to
they
be out
were
here.
Beat your heinies, And one night, my mom was awakened by what we believed to be a bear going through our trash.
Is this the thing she saw out the window? You told me a part of the story.
I don't know. I
And-
totally
and-
forgot about this part of the story, so it
and,
might be a different story.
Oh,
So she went to the kitchen window and looked out, and it's what she said, the big hairy man. It said it wasn't a bear, but she said when it comes dark, you kids are better be in the house and stay off that mountain.
I mean, again, literally, probably the origin why every country boy, including myself, grew up his entire life. Mom and dad said, when the barn light comes on, you come in.
So
Nothing good happens after midnight. All of these lovely little things that grandmas told us our whole lives growing up. I mean, like I said, I don't believe in any coincidence. And this is also like, sorry to cut you off. I know you're about to say something, but like, there was a time when this was pop culture. I mean, Harry and the Hendersons was a TV show, not because it was such a far-fetched idea. Well, it's because it was significant. It was culturally significant. That was a very popular show.
Yeah, it was actually something that people could relate to because it's something that they've heard about.
Right. And nowadays we've kind of gotten away from that. Now
Like
everybody's like,
Alf.
oh, whatever.
Alf. People
Alf,
love
eh,
Alf because hey, little
He's
alien.
a dwarf version of a Sasquatch. If you think about it.
So let me-
I would not have ever put those two things together, but you're right.
Yeah.
let me share
Alf is a little Sasquatch.
something interesting with you. Whenever you have, I listen to a lot of podcasts, a lot of Bigfoot podcasts. Whenever you have a man telling a story about how he came across a Bigfoot, it's either driving down the road, saw it on the side of the road, or he was out hunting and he saw it, he just came across it by accident. Whenever you hear a woman telling a story about Bigfoot, there's always exceptions, right? She might have been out hunting or something, but usually whenever you hear a woman telling a story, it's like what he described. It was going through my trash. It was hanging out around my house. It was looking in the window.
Right.
Why do you think that is?
Oh, I have my theory.
Oh, please. Hold on. Yes, please.
Oh, it's
What do what women do something when they're young in their prime?
Oh, I completely understand. I know exactly where we're going for this.
okay.
Yeah, I
That's
mean, it's
fine.
an animal in heat.
That's fine.
Yes.
Yeah, of course.
And there
Well, I mean,
there are stories
every
of
single-
these things interbreeding with humans.
Every single thing
Successful.
throughout history operates off of pheromones, including us today.
Yeah.
There's a reason why perfumes and colognes and everything else, and why certain foods trigger memories and everything else. A pheromones and smells is, I mean, I refer to it as the third eye is literally your nose, because it can unlock memories. I mean, they tell you things like if you study while you're drinking coffee, you need to have coffee when you take the test, because the smell of coffee will trigger the memories of what you studied. If you want to remember test questions when you're studying, you should have like a peppermint or gum or something. Have the same gum when you're studying, and your brain links memories to smells. I mean, that's why you walk outside and the smell of rain. I forget the name for it, but it,
Yeah, I
it
know
like
what you're talking
it has a name to it, because like even our ancestors, that wet earth,
Yeah.
and it triggers a primordial like reaction in man. So of course some animal would be the same.
So unless you have like a story of like the ranch story I sent you, where you have people that are living in a hot spot and they see things regularly.
Right.
Unless there's something like that, like they accidentally moved like into the middle of their territory and they're seeing things on a regular basis. Anytime you hear like a guy telling a story, it's like a one-off thing. And I'm not trying to like paint everything with a wide stroke here, but if you hear a female telling a story, it's a series of events evenly paced apart, and it's usually coming to where she's at. That's why.
In a non-aggressive manner.
Well, depends.
Well, I mean, like they're
Because I've heard
inquisitive.
there have been stories where it will come to the house. Actually, I listened to one recently, and it was a Dogman story, but very similar. It was a.
Do you think that those are the same? Are the same?
So it was a woman, and it was bothering her at her house, and she was like studying for college, like ready to drop out. So she's like, you know what? I want to go to my boyfriend's house, 5 miles down the road in town. And sure enough, it starts looking in the window, but it sees her with a male now, and it becomes very aggressive. Yeah.
Do you think that Dogman and Sasquatch are like the same?
No.
I mean, like obviously they look different, they're depicted differently, but do you think that could just be like culturally? Like,
I think the anatomy is so wildly different. There's no way. Like the leg structure is entirely different.
because it's like lichen werewolf.
Yeah, I mean,
more.
it has canine legs. It goes from
Nobody ever describes Sasquatch as rearing up on its rear legs, the bones popping as it
No.
changes. Like those
No.
things are separate.
I mean, there are tales of Bigfoot like going quadruped sometimes, very rarely. But
I mean,
Dogman is often seen doing both and switching in between the two. So it's a much more common thing. The facial features are totally different. We got something that actually has claws. It's not the same creature. Now it may have. I mean, it's a mammal, as far as we know, right? So it's
Well, I mean,
gonna
yeah,
it's gonna be
yeah.
attracted to pheromones just like any other creature. But anyway, that was just an interesting little. I want to finish like his stories, but that was just an interesting little side note because he brought up going through the trash. Usually, if a woman's telling a story about a Bigfoot or Dogman encounter, it's going through her trash. Why? What goes in the trash?
right.
Yeah.
What goes in the trash? Yeah.
So if you ever go out looking for a
I'd rather
species
not.
like that, make sure there are no women with you.
Or maybe do. Maybe.
No, I'm good.
Don't use them for bait. That's
I'm
okay.
good. Yeah,
Oh
no.
man.
No, I'm good.
Okay, so I was about 16. Okay, and the reason that I waited so long, because obviously I'm past 16 now.
Just a few years.
Yeah, so it's because I spent 30 years in law enforcement.
I
okay?
did not know that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And
I didn't know that.
in order for, a cop has got to be believable. You got to be trustworthy.
There's a reason why you're an expert witness in court.
Yeah, so
Absolutely.
if you go around telling people, I saw Bigfoot when I was 16, they're like, so you want to be a cop or a dog catcher? You know?
Make a
So-
great animal control officer.
So my brother, his girlfriend was down from Washington State and was actually living with our family. She had got a job in Alvarado at the nursing home. And she was working 3 p.m. to 11 p.m.
Okay.
And my brother, he says, hey, how about you and our sister, her name's Lee.
Okay.
How about you guys drive me over there to pick up my girlfriend and bring us home? Sure, nothing else going on anyhow, you know. So we lived outside of Grandview, and then so we would take the back roads from Grandview to Alvarado, just because we're kids.
Well, yeah, gas
Yeah.
was cheap, and we're not in a hurry to get there.
Don't want to be out on the interstate.
Crack
where
the windows,
where
turn up
highway
the AM
patrols
radio.
are or anything else, you know.
Yeah, that's true.
Just out of sight, out of mind.
I'll
So-
take some ice as well, please, if you don't mind.
I don't have tongs.
I don't care. It's alcohol. It's self-sterilizing.
So we go and we pick her up. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you, sir.
And on the drive back, we're maybe a mile from our house on a dirt road, well, gravel road, caliche. And
The good old white chalky dust roads for those
Yeah.
people that don't know what a caliche road is online.
I remember it just as vivid now as that day. And in fact, I could drive down that same road today and tell you exactly where I was and where this creature was. I can tell you exactly.
What time was this? Like what?
Well, it would have to be about 11:15 p.m.
Okay, gotcha. So
Okay.
middle of the night.
Yeah, and so I have my lights on bright.
Yeah.
We're in the country, you know.
Deer, hogs, anything else. Want to see
Anything,
the side of the road.
anything,
Yeah.
Anything. So we round this corner, this curve, and drop off this hill. It's not a very big hill, but we drop off. And my headlights pan down. And at just about the bottom of the hill, I see something on all fours. And I'm thinking, a hog. No, wait a minute. We haven't had hogs in forever. And I know it's not a bear because it hadn't been bear in these parts for
Right.
200 years, you know. What the heck is that?
Because it's big.
It's huge.
Right.
I thought it was, could have been a cow, even a small calf.
Sure. Yeah, I
Something
can
like
see that.
Then it stood up.
Oh Lord, no.
Yeah.
See, like,
It didn't.
I'm not one of those guys, but that's when I'm like, I saw nothing, hammered down.
I mean,
Oh Lord.
you know these woodpeckers you can get, that do like this, and they're bobbing in the glass and they pop back up.
Oh yeah. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, well, that's how this thing did. It just stood up.
And you're just like going by.
No, I stopped
Oh.
because it's in the middle of the road
Oh.
by this time, and probably 30 feet away from me.
Oh no.
See, he tells it way better than I could tell it.
This thing could, and I didn't notice it was male or female. I was busy.
And you had who with you? This was
My sister,
Your sister.
my brother, and my brother's girlfriend.
And they're not asleep.
No, well,
They're all staring.
My brother and his girlfriend are busy.
I gotcha. Okay, fair enough. Country road story.
But
But like
this
they're looking. I assume at this point you're like, why have you stopped? And everyone's looking out the front of the car.
My sister is like, she has to hold the dash, like, go,
And you're like,
I'm
where?
Exactly. This thing could have reached out and slammed the hood of our car. That's how close we were. And my sister screaming, go. And like I say, I had my lights on bright, and I'm like, well, this bright light's going to make this thing mad. So I put it on dim,
Yeah.
and the eye shine from this thing was as red as that light right up there. Just amazing. And on its chest was a white V. Now, I don't know if that V was because of, the headlights refraction off the hairs or anything like that.
Or maybe just like an animal that has like a different color pelt or whatever.
Yeah.
My cat has the same thing.
And it turned its upper body and just looked at us and kept its hands down about here, and the arms, the hands were lower than the knees. The arms were that long. And
Almost
so-
like a gorilla.
almost.
Yeah. I'm
And,
trying to like picture this in my
And I'm
mind.
sitting there and I'm thinking, I lived in Washington State all this time, and I
here's
come
one
to
in
Texas and I found out Bigfoot.
On the way to Grandview.
Yeah. And it took like 2 steps, was off the road, went through a tree line where there was a barbed wire fence. And so when it got up on the tree line, I eased forward so I could see it, and it was gone. I mean, it was just a pasture on the other side of this barbed wire fence, and there's nothing there.
How to get through the fence?
Stepped over it, I guess. My sister's like, "Where'd it go?" I don't know. We're out of here, though. And off we went.
That's incredible.
Tell us a little bit more, because you didn't live far from that. Tell us a little bit more about that
I
house
was
you were
probably
at.
less than a mile from there. But
Oh, no, we moving.
that's exactly what happened.
If I found a snake in my house, this would be up for sale. I mean, that's just me. Like, I'm not.
If I found a snake in my house, it would be for sale as is, because it'd be shotgun holes.
Yeah.
But didn't some weird stuff happen in the house too?
Out in we had several of the cattle we find mutilated out in the pasture, just like you see that they report in New
Yeah, like from the
Mexico
movies,
and
they're all
that.
ripped open
And I mean,
which is not okay, which is not uncommon out even in these parts, because we do have coyotes and stuff like that. But this is a good point. When coyotes take down an animal, I grew up on a farm. Okay, there's pieces all over the place, and it is a very, very telltale sign.
They scatter it.
They scatter it because it's a pack. Usually, there's multiples, and they want to take their prize off something else. These mutilated, because I've seen pictures, these mutilated cows, it looks entirely different. There is one thing that has eaten it in one place, and the most scary point of it is there is no other animals that have come around it.
no.
Like, that's like, you see those like National Geographics, right? And the water buffalo gets eaten or whatever, and the hyenas are over there, and they're trying to scare off the lion. He's trying to get his dinner, and then there's the birds, and they're all these animals, right? Hence the scattering effect. You got to be seriously the big dog when all the other quote unquote predators go, yeah, you can have that one.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a
That was, I mean, of course, we would find the larvae, from flies, maggots,
sure.
But
Well, yeah.
as far as carry-on critters, no armadillos, no opossums.
And what
no
year was this?
Buzzards. It's 75 through 77.
Okay. Hey,
76,
coincidentally, when Star Wars came
77.
out.
And our dad came home one day. Now let me tell you this, and then there's another part to my story. Okay. And he says, so Mom and I got to noticing that you boys are acting strange, or the normal.
Because he didn't come home and talk about this.
No, heck no.
They're going to be like, great. What else were you drinking or smoking on that car ride to Grandview?
Well, they knew me. I didn't.
Well,
I
I mean,
didn't
like, that
drink
would be the
anything.
natural assumption.
My uncle still believes that we were stoned, but he thinks whatever. So who cares? But
He's probably just wishing you were stoned, because if you weren't, then the answer is,
Well,
what
he-
the heck did you see?
Well, it
He-
makes
he
it now easier if you just assume that they were incapacitated some
he
way.
knew about the cattle, because he'd been out and checking them and finding them, stuff like that.
Well, sure.
And my sister had seen something out in our yard, and he knew about these things. Okay, and so he said, "Notice you guys acting kind of strange or something." Whatever got us started on it, and we told him what happened. He says, "Okay, we're moving in 2 weeks," and it was probably less than that.
So after denial, you guys are stoned. There's no way you saw this. A couple other things happen, and then finally he's like,
Oh no, we never told him anything about it.
Well,
Oh.
there's a
you were just acting weird, and he was like,
Stranger than usual because
Yeah.
we didn't want to go out at night.
there was kind of an assumption in the family.
Okay.
That I don't know if you ever talked to me about it, but maybe he had seen something
Yeah.
and he wasn't going to talk about it.
Well,
But when they're like, "Yeah, we saw something," he's like, "Okay, that's all. That kind of validates what I saw. We're just getting out of here."
No, you're right, because the same reason why you're like, we can't tell them this. They're going to think we're nuts.
Right.
Yeah. He very likely could be thinking the same thing.
You don't want to scare your kids, your family.
It's like that
Exactly.
Spider-Man meme. Everybody's
Yeah,
doing
everyone-
this.
yeah, no one's talking about
And then all of a sudden, when there's one person that's like, dude, I saw something. He was just like, we're out 2 weeks. We're good.
But what's important to understand about this? This is not Oklahoma or Washington State or Oregon or California.
This is 20 minutes from my house.
Yeah.
Oh, it was less than that. I
Well,
mean,
it's
Let's just say
20 minutes from
20
here.
minutes. I don't want to have to move.
oh, for your house, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dude,
Oh, yeah.
it's
right
a
there by
different,
you.
just like he was talking about the mountain. I know that you finished your story. Like when he was talking about seeing stuff on the mountain, you got to keep in mind, this was what, Washington State
Yeah, Washington State.
in the 60s, early 70s?
No, 72, 73.
This was the country areas were way more country.
Sure.
And so you could go out to that same mountain. You might hear something every once in a while, but it's not going to be like he's describing.
Well,
It's just like where he's talking about where you saw that thing on the side of the road. There's houses everywhere now. There's nothing out there.
Right.
The house that we lived in Ording, where we heard this on the mountain and stuff, that house is still there. And of course, it was a brand new house when we first moved to it, but it's still there. And I have pictures because every time I go to Washington now, if I'm in that area, I'll go by and check on that house.
Oh, hell no.
And,
No.
And between that house and the mountain, there's like 2 or 3 more houses built, so. But anyhow, so we moved to town, okay?
2 weeks go by and he's
Roughly.
man of his word. Yeah. Okay.
Roughly. And so I'm going to a convenience store there in town. I'm walking in, and one of my buddies from high school and his girlfriend pull up into the parking lot of this store, and I look, and because he doesn't usually drive like that, and she's crying her eyes out.
Dude's
and-
white as a ghost or
and
something.
he jumps out of the car and he's like, dude, let's go to your house, get your dad's guns. I'm like, whoa.
Grab the pitchforks.
I'm like, why? He says, out there where you used to live, we saw something. And he described it to me and said that they were driving down the road, and this thing crossed the road on 2 feet in front of them, bipedal, I should say. And he slammed on his brakes to keep from hitting this thing. Well, there's a big caution sign, street sign on the side of the road. He said this thing walked over to it. He's taller than that sign is, and grabs the sign, just bends it double. He said, we did a donut and came here and go get your dad's guns. We're going to go hunt this thing. And I said, you might, but it's not going to be with me or my dad.
I was like, because you've seen it and you're like, I want nothing to
not
do.
going
We
out.
moved. So here's kind of I'm not saying devil's advocate side of this. Okay. Like I said, you said Alf, Harry and the Hendersons. Those were late 70s, early 80s TV shows, right?
Yeah.
80s.
Both
Okay.
of those were 80s, I think.
Early 80s. Okay. 77. You have Star Wars. You have Chewbacca. Chewbacca is, for all intents and purposes, a Bigfoot. Okay. So again, in pop culture, these are not foreign concepts. They're put there because of the, like you said, the recognizable ness of a character or a shape, and you kind of like already feel like you have some understanding of it. My whole question that I've always come across is, like I said, I'm not playing devil's advocate. Just like this is the hurdle that I have to get over with it. Is I understand in the 70s or the 80s, okay, nobody had these, right? Nobody had a cell phone, 10x digital cameras and 4K. Heck, I have a drone that I can fly 10 kilometers away with my cell phone and take 2.7K images. And right? What do you think? Because I have a theory. What do you think happened between those time periods? Because you don't hear about sightings anymore. You don't. Periodically, you do, okay, but not at the extent that you did in the 70s and 80s. That was like a hot time for
They're
it.
not made famous, is what you mean. They're not like on the news.
Yeah, so I have two theories. And that's what I want to tell you mine, then please.
All right, tell me yours.
So, like, why we don't have any video evidence anymore? Every time, if you Google search Bigfoot footage, you're going to see the same, like, 12 seconds that we've all seen since childhood that was on the History Channel and everything else. You know, the thing going, and we've taken this camcorder footage and stabilized it, and here's the 6 frames. I mean, I can picture it right now because it's everything I remember seeing. Versus now when we have cameras everywhere, everybody's house. I have cameras at my house on the outside. I have, people's cars have security cameras built in, game cameras everywhere for deer and everything else. I have two theories. Is it A, because the government has been, hunting them, like you said, the black helicopters come in and they're gone, and so they've been exterminated? Is it declining population because deforestation or just humankind has pushed them somewhere else? Or is it, God, no, I mean, you're really making me think about some of this stuff, because it's like, or is it the other side of it that we don't see them because, like you said, it's more of like a, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you said before, like a corporeal form creature or something, where it's like another dimension. Which, look, guys, I know this sounds crazy, okay? But you can't argue that people have said they've seen things. You can say they're nuts. You can say that he's wrong all you want. People believe it.
Oh, I know what I saw. I don't care what anybody believes.
Right. People still go to tarot card readings and crystal balls and everything else. You can say it's debunked or funky or whatever else, but people legitimately believe in it. There's a faith in the belief of it. So my question is like, why do you think we don't see it today versus why it was so prevalent in pop culture for, like, let's say 20 years? 70s to or late 60s to the 80s.
All right, here's my hypothesis.
You can actually bring it closer to you. It'll hear you better. You can slide it all the way
I
up
was
there.
going to scoot my butt up closer.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
I think that your theories A, B, and C all have a bearing on this.
Maybe like little pieces of each.
Yeah, but there's another part too, that even though man keeps developing and encroaching upon their property, upon their territory,
Right.
and we put game cameras out. We have all sorts of things that we put out to try to capture images of whatever's out there. Well, these creatures are not dumb, okay? And I suspect that they have developed where they can identify plastics, man-made products.
Has a smell.
Has a smell, and hey, that's associated with people. Let's stay away from there.
That's a fascinating. I mean, you're right. I mean,
Let's also keep this in mind. We spoke about infrasound before, which is infra means lower than
what we could hear.
What we could hear.
the human hearing range.
I mean, there are reports of it making a sound. Like, I associate it with like lions and stuff growling and things like that, but it didn't have to be associated with like a sound you can hear. When people are walking in the woods and they just had this feeling of dread,
That
or
ominous.
they feel it in their heart, that kind of thing, that ominous feeling, that's infrasound. That's your gut telling you something is here, telling us to get out of here.
I 100%
So
believe
my
in
point
that.
is, if these things can create infrasound, probably assume they can hear it too. If they could hear something lower than what we would consider audible, could they see in wavelengths that are lower than what we can see?
I mean, a dog can, so why couldn't they?
If you have a game camera, how does a game camera
Infrared light.
Infrared light.
So it's a spotlight to them.
Yeah,
I mean, it could be.
there are
Fascinating.
there are reports of people that had created like motion lights.
Right.
Like they lived in a hot spot, like we're talking about. These things are coming up to the house, looking in the windows, so they put spotlights,
I
motion
want
sensor.
something a little larger caliber
And
than
I
a spotlight.
don't know that those are. I don't know that those are infrared, but they detect motion some way.
That's how they work. It takes an infrared image and then it detects motion within that beam. And if something breaks that beam, then it triggers it.
These people that did this said it would like the lights would still go off, would trigger, but these things weren't coming up to the house. And then they go out in their yard the next day and they find sticks sitting like vertically in their lawn,
Marking the range.
marking the range. So they were marking the range.
Dude, that's straight creepy, man.
I know.
I mean, but again, it makes sense. If you have something that's even marginally more intelligent than an animal, I mean, animals know that. A coyote knows to stay at the tree line, not because it knows, oh, that's a Remington 7 mil Magnum he's got, and that's got a 300 yard range. It's not that. They understand what cover and concealment is. Every tactic we've ever learned in the military about small unit tactics, it's adaptation from animal kingdom. It's, hey, this is how you stalk upwind or downwind. And I mean, all of that stuff comes from learning from animals. So
if you take someone that's well trained in camouflage and they're in a ghillie suit, and they can stand next to a hiking trail. They can stand next to a hiking trail,
and they're gone.
and you don't see them.
Right.
How much harder would it be? This is someone that was trained for several years.
How much easier would it be? For
Yeah,
them?
how much easier would it be for something that naturally came across this kind of camouflage, that grew up in this kind of environment, that has not only the instincts but has greater senses. It can smell you coming. It can hear you coming before you're there. Like if they wanted to, they're gone before you even know they're there, because they hear you, they smell you. But if they wanted to, they could stand perfectly still. They could climb a tree. There's stories of these things climbing trees. They could, despite their size, like I guess the smaller ones, but you wouldn't know it's there.
So you're saying that the rise of technology may inadvertently be why we don't see them. I mean, because back in the day,
it probably has something to do with it. Yeah.
a camcorder back in the day was relatively low tech, didn't have an infrared light, didn't make a. I brought up my drone earlier. I can tell you right now, if I fly that thing anywhere remotely near my backyard, my 2 German Shepherds run and hide. They that buzz, right? And what's funny is I don't really hear it. I get it about 20 feet off the ground, and I have to go, oh crap, where did I put it? You know, I have to like look at the screen and be like, oh, it's over here. Sometimes
we don't hear it.
We don't hear it, but my dogs do, right?
But you know, these creatures, whatever they may be, the people who have seen these things, who've had an experience with them, except for one guy that I interviewed, okay, these things don't. It's not like they're getting dolled up, putting on their Sunday best, and going out so we can see them.
Oh, it's sticks, bud, leaves, and everything
It's
else.
accident, you know. They become complacent in their own environment. They got their head up their rear, whatever, you know, and oops, there's a person, you know. And we're sitting there going, oops.
Well, and also with any other animal, I hate to keep saying animal, but I mean, they're a wild animal, intelligent though they may. Gorillas know sign language. It doesn't make them as smart as us, but it makes them smarter than the quote average bear, to use the parlance. They're still going to be distracted, thirst or hunger. Animals will do desperate things. So, I mean, it's not like we have one to study, so we don't know if they hibernate, right? Something could come out of hibernation. Bears are the most dangerous when they first awaken from hibernation because they're starving, right?
You haven't met my wife.
Well, like a lot of it's curiosity. They might get curious. They might be like, "What's this coming down the road out here?"
Right.
But often it's hunters, people that are already walking really quietly, trying to conceal their scent. And so, if you just happen to be walking downwind from one of these things, and you're walking really quiet, and it happens to be focused on something else, maybe it's tracking a deer or something, watching some prey.
True.
That's how these people. That's how these are come across in the wild. Often it's a hunter, someone that's already out there, and it's not just by virtue of being out there. It's also, hey, I was camouflaged. I was walking quietly. I had deer pee on, or I was masking my scent with some clothing or something like that, and just everything just kind of lined up, and this thing just did not catch it till you were too close to it.
With your story, you said that it was when you came out in the car and you came over the hill, and the headlights. You said it was by trash cans.
No,
Oh, sorry.
they're standing by the road.
Just standing by the
The
road.
trash can was my grandmother.
But he was moving across the road. Oh, that's the trash can was moving across the road to like a field or something.
Right.
It's a great. I mean, that's a great. I can't tell you how many times I've been driving, and out of the corner of my eye, once I'm already past it, I'm like, oh, that was a deer. Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, especially at night, and you just like kind of out of nowhere, just like become aware of the fact that you're like, oh, there was a deer there, right? And, or what do they always say? For every one you see, you didn't notice the rest of the herd,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
The one that jumps in front of you, that's not the one you hit. that's where your eyes go, and then you hit the two that were jumping after it, right? Like that's always what it seems like to me.
But you know, it's funny that you mentioned these people who would go out and camouflage and stuff like that because, well, Dave Pilatus, missing 411.
Okay, hold on. What? Who?
Dave Pilatus.
I don't think I know him.
Oh, you need to watch Missing 411. It's wild.
Yeah, you need to listen to.
Is that a TV show or?
It's a documentary.
Listen to him on Coast to Coast and stuff like that. And plug in a few. I don't get anything from it, but anyhow, Dave was. I think it was L.A. County. I'm not real sure, but he's retired now, deputy, and became very interested in the missing persons in national parks.
Oh,
And
Dude, this is creepy.
and you would not believe how many people. I'm not going to throw a number out there. I'll let you and your listeners Google David Pilatus, and you know, listen to his interviews and stuff. But one of the things I was going to talk about is that most of the people who wind up missing, I shouldn't say most of them, but a good number of them are wearing not camouflage, but hunter's orange. There's something that can be easily seen. And
I mean,
so,
deer can't see it.
whatever it
That's
is.
why. I mean, that's why hunters wear bright orange because deers can't see it, but other hunters can.
Well, yeah, but these people that wind up missing, okay, what's taking them? Is it Bigfoot? Is it
Oh, you mean the people that
aliens?
went missing are wearing the orange?
Yeah.
Oh,
And
not
so-
like the people that stumble. Well, technically they did stumble across them, I guess. Like
Well,
potentially.
eventually, and some it has been, a lot of time has passed by in between time they went missing and found, and others who were just small children, 4 or 5 years old, wind up missing here, and their remains are found a couple years later on the other side of a mountain ridge. There's no way they could have gotten there.
In places where it would take like experienced hikers,
Right.
experienced mountain climbers to get to.
Technical rock climbing elements to get
And their
to.
clothes a lot of times would be folded and placed neatly, and
So there's a theory about the. So I worked in search and rescue for
yeah,
years.
me too.
And I've heard that, again, call me devil's advocate with this, that could be explained by when people realize that their own peril or doom, that they will take off their clothes and actually fold them.
Mm-hmm.
So, and like you said, could be that they've done that and then gone off. But I've heard that, like you said, you can't explain somebody being. No small child is going to go missing and then be tens of miles away. That's not what people do in a survival set. I want to make sure I put that. Like, you could explain the folded clothes. People who are lost do not go one direction for 30 or 40 miles. It does not happen.
Especially not rugged mountain range.
Especially not in rugged mountain range. They usually
you look-
follow downhill. They follow towards a site, a peak usually or something. You don't go over mountains. You go towards mountains.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't survive for the amount of time that it would take to get there, especially in parts of the world like this because of just exposure. People don't realize that 50, 60 degrees without the proper clothing, you just die from exposure.
It's cold.
It's cold. 50 degrees at night is enough to kill you if you're wet and tired and hungry.
If you look at the missing 411 cases on like the United States map, and then you also say, hey, I want to know where the greatest concentration are of cave systems in the United States.
Oh, yeah.
They correspond.
Wow.
There's a correspondence there.
Yeah, I don't
And
mess-
also,
I don't
if
mess
you
with
link,
caves.
I don't either. But also, if you link Sasquatch sightings,
Caves.
Dogman sightings,
Caves.
there are stories in like Tennessee,
You have just ruined like
Kentucky.
Mammoth caves for me.
that area. There are places where historically the locals would say, you don't go near those caves. That's where those dogmen.
Nope.
They're associated with cave systems and living in those things. And people would like see them moving in and out of the caves, like coming in and out. You just don't go there. You stay away from there.
And
And I'm not trying to be insulting to anyone that may have experienced like a missing 411 case and say, it was Bigfoot took your kid or something like that. I'm just saying this is like the land between the lakes kind of thing I was telling you about. There's a correlation. I'm not saying that if someone turns out missing, Dogman threw him over the shoulder and ran off with it. I'm just saying there's some anomalies here.
There are anomalies, and I apologize if I came across, saying, "Hey, you're missing person, you're missing family member has been taken by Bigfoot or aliens," because I don't know. I don't know.
And that's the point. Let's say in every single thing we behave as until something can be disproven, it's treated as theory or fact.
Well, that's science.
That's science. Until it can be disproven, it's a theory or it's a fact.
But another thing I'd like for you to research is an area called Yacolt, Yacolt,
Yacolt? Okay.
Yacolt, Washington.
Yacolt, Washington. All right.
Back in the, I believe it's mid 1800s, a group of children came missing there.
Okay.
And it's not like one or two, it's like a bunch. And it's blamed on the hairy man in that area.
Do you think that beyond coincidence, do you think there is any explanation that you could have? Because, I mean, everything that you believe, you have to self-internalize and, like, dialogue and just, like, I mean, even if you see the thing, I'm sure on the drive home that night, somebody had to be like, oh, my God, it must have just been a bear. Oh, hey, I mean, maybe, but, you know, I'm saying, like, do you think that there is any other explanation for the coincidences, for the similarities across cultures, other than like you having, I believe it, but this is the only thing that I could see as being any other possibility. Is there anything else that you would go, if it's not Bigfoot, it has to be this, for it to have any semblance of why all these cultures from all these parts of the world, the Vikings had a Bigfoot myth. I mean, like, there's no, why that? The French in the mountains and the Alps, that's what the beast was in Beauty and the Beast. You can say, like, oh, well, it had horns and it's different. What if that was just a Bigfoot story that they're like, hey, we have to tell the kids something?
Let's make them evil by putting horns on it like the devil.
Well, or we have to make up the story that no, it's not this evil creature. It's just a prince, and he was, he had to find true love, and then he turned back, and everything's happy ever after. By the way, I know it's dark, but now you need to go milk the cows.
Yeah,
right. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, is there any reason for why things would be shared across these cultures like that, other than there's something there?
Well, there's obviously something there. Okay, now. The reason that it's shared across cultures is because people are having experiences, seeing them. If you ask me what I saw, I don't know. I don't know what it is. It doesn't fit the generic profile, of Bigfoot, like Patty.
Right.
It didn't fit that. If to me it was a giant caveman.
Wow.
With hairy cavemen. But, and then, over the years, especially after, I'd never told hardly anybody about it.
Just because you thought, like, they would think you're crazy.
Until I retired, okay? And then
I got you.
internet comes out, and I'm like, okay, I want to find out more about what I saw. And then Justin turned me on to this one guy called Matt Squatch.
When did you tell him?
Oh, years
a
ago.
little kid.
Like when he's a little kid, you're like, hey, FYI.
Yeah, well, he was
I saw
different.
this.
I could tell my kids because if they blabbed to anybody, I just ground them.
Be like, or you'd be like, stupid kids, he's just making up stories.
After his grandmother, don't pay attention to him. But,
kids these days he's on that devil's lettuce or something.
He's on that Ritalin.
But I don't know. I don't know what it was. But I looked at Matt Squatch and
at what?
Matt Squatch.
It's a YouTuber podcaster.
Oh, I thought it was like another like
Matt.
Sasquatch, Yeti, Matt Squatch. I'm like,
he
what's a
turned me
Matt
on-
Squatch?
He turned me on to this guy had a YouTube called Matt Squatch.
Is he still on?
As far as I know, but if he's not, I'm sure you can find his video.
Oh, sure.
And one of them had the 10 different most widely reported descriptions for the Bigfoot. And I'm sorry, Sasquatch. They're a different species. They're not Bigfoot, they're Sasquatch. And the one that I saw,
Cow, water buffalo. Similar looks, different species.
different, yeah.
Right, yeah.
But what we're talking about is same species, just different looks.
Oh,
with
okay.
the Sasquatch and Bigfoot and all that.
Arabian horse pinto.
Okay. The one that I saw most closely resembled the one that was called a woodbooker. And it is mostly reported in the Southwest.
Us.
Yeah.
We're kind of in an interesting area
Yeah, the
because
triangle.
we get a whole lot. Well, that's the Dogman Triangle.
Oh, okay.
But we also we're close enough to Louisiana to attract that kind of thing. We're close enough to, so it's a
Mexico, we got the chupacabra stories in
well,
South
and
Texas.
Oklahoma and all this. So we're kind of in this interesting location.
Yeah, you get to East Texas and you have the traditional skunk apes and the
I've
traditional.
never heard of a
Bigfoot.
skunk ape.
Skunk-
Skunk ape.
Skunk is mostly associated with like
New Orleans
Florida.
area, Louisiana.
Is that I'm gonna use my big boy brain moment.
So you have to
Would
keep
that
in
be
mind.
because of like a Sasquatch in the swamp and it stinks? Is that where it gets the like stinky skunk ape?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, Sasquatch is supposed to have a. That's one of the first things. So there's two things that really
we
give
talked
away.
about this, the smell.
People will talk about when they're telling a story about Bigfoot. There's two things that they will report before the actual sighting. One is a really strange, really bad odor, or they'll be in the middle of the woods, birds are chirping, right?
Oh, and those-
and
the
then
still.
and then it just stops. You
Yeah,
don't
see,
hear
I
any-
know that from search and rescue. If anything is quiet, you are not the biggest thing in the woods anymore.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
There's videos. This one guy, he's walking through the woods, and he's like, "What is that noise?" And there's a lot of the Chinese chatter. You know,
Yeah, the birds and everything.
no. It's like
Chinese chatter.
it's a
another form of Bigfoot communication.
yeah. It's. But
Pull,
the,
pull
probably
this
the-
up. Pull this up. I'm not. I want to know. Like,
Yeah.
But you could hear that, and you could see his dog running around. He's like, "What is that? What is that? It's got to be Bigfoot." Birds are singing, frogs are croaking, crickets are singing.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing going on. That's all overlaid.
Yeah.
Because if there's a apex predator out
Oh yeah,
there,
everything goes quiet.
yeah,
The crickets don't
they
make
don't
a damn
want to
sound.
become an appetizer.
Right. Well, and again, is also because there's a lot of other animals that hear at different ranges. So that same, I do believe. Oh, more.
Sorry,
That's not
gotta add. Here we go. So so it's actually called samurai chatter, but calling it either one of those is probably not okay anymore.
Probably
but,
not.
but
I'll call it.
Chinese chatter.
Well,
But you'll see
Japanese, Chinese, slightly.
you'll see why that was called that. But it's
All right, hold on. All right. Again, guys, I'm not saying I like to. We joke all the time about like the Joe Rogan podcast. Okay, I'm not saying I do or don't believe in anything. All I'm saying is that there's too many things that are coincidental to not believe that there's something. Now, whether you want to go as far as saying it is real or you want to go as far as saying it's corporeal and it teleports between dimensions, there's a lot of things that it could be. But there are things like this that I go, huh. So here I'm gonna. So this is the Bigfoot samurai chatter. Let's see if we can. Oh, and I just locked your phone. Okay, so unlock it. My volume button's on the other side. I'm sorry.
oh my gosh. Oh yeah,
you know, the thing is, there's a lot of people, you know, who would argue about Loch Ness and
Right.
Nessie, and I've been there, but I never saw Loch Ness. I never saw the monster.
Right.
You know, and there's millions of people who've been to Washington and Oregon and places and never saw Bigfoot.
It only
or
takes one.
Sasquatch.
we got people that have hunted their entire lives and never seen so much as a footprint.
But it's kind of like aliens. I believe in aliens too.
I do too.
I don't have to be abducted to be made a full believer.
Right.
We'll get
Right.
into that.
I legitimately, and it's the way I've always said, there's no reason for stories to exist unless they serve a moral or there's a reason.
Well,
That's
I want to touch on that. I want to touch on that. But
this.
let's get
My
through this.
eyes are bugging me.
what we were dealing with. We still don't know what we're dealing with, but it's something very unusual. Strange things
It may
happen.
not be the best video.
Most of the stuff happened.
Well,
in the
we'll cut
evening
down
time,
until we get to the sound.
dusk,
Yeah.
nighttime, like now.
There is a way for us, and I need to show you because we can connect you to this, and it'll
The
work.
first time
Oh, it's no
I
problem
ever-
for me to do it after the fact either,
later
though.
in 75,
Oh, that's
came
true.
back up with the guys, and we just
Can I see that? This
Yeah.
guy's just going to yap.
One of my favorite shows is that there's a cop who's sent out on a
Yeah, these are. Yeah. Hold
It's a
on.
dog.
No, those
that's
are.
it.
That little hyena.
No, that
Yelpy
was.
Whelp
That's
thing?
not all of it, no. But there's a cop who's sitting out on a suspicious whatever call, and he's out and he's walking with his canine up to this.
I'll have to find one and send one to you.
And all of a sudden, this comes out of the woods. He goes, nope, 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 nope.
Oh, yeah.
And the dog's already back in the car.
Yeah.
Right.
But anytime you're watching a video and they're like, yeah, this is Bigfoot sound or something, and this guy's, or woman, whatever, and she's out in the woods and you hear birds tweeting and your dog's acting fine and everything, and you just hear this sound, it's fake. And these are people that don't know how to research
Yeah, that
what they're
dog is
faking.
not going to be.
That dog's not
wagging
going to be
his
hanging
tail.
out. He's not going to be wagging his tail. You're not going to hear birds. Everything's quiet.
I always love it in like in movies and stuff when something goes off and everybody starts screaming and running.
Yeah.
And I tell my wife, I'm like, that's so fake. And she's like, why? It's like, because when something blows up, a car accident, when two cars slam into each other, it's not like in the movies where everybody goes, oh my God, immediately. Everybody just stops. It takes you seconds, which feels like an eternity, to register what has happened. If you've ever been around a large explosion, if you've ever been around gunshots, it's kind of like fireworks. The thing pops and you turn, and then a second later you jump. Now, you don't think of it that way, but the next time you get startled, realize that when your husband jumps around, like if you watch those videos on YouTube, like people in
yeah.
slow motion, when they jump around this corner, they scare their wife,
Those are
they recoil
And then scream.
and then scream. That is a human reaction. And if you immediately scream, you knew it was coming. Which is why in
Well, that makes
Hollywood-
sense. You get yourself out of danger, and then you make a loud vocalization to alert other people.
Or,
But
or
you get
to
yourself
try to
safe
scare
first.
it off.
Yeah.
That's
So
to
you
point out I used to be on TV.
Really?
Yeah.
What were you on
It's
TV
not
with?
my claim to fame, though.
What were you on TV with?
Oh, it was Walker, Texas Ranger.
What?
Yeah.
How is that not a claim to fame?
I was an extra on there about 3 times. And then I did 3 days on any given Sunday.
You have got to put at least one 5-second snippet of your dad
That's about all that is.
used
walking
to-
through Walker, Texas
No, I'm
Ranger.
not walking. Stationary
yeah,
in all of them.
he was a stunt double. He did all roundhouses.
Yeah, I was just stuck double from Chuck Norris.
So you said something earlier, like why would there be this common theme across all of
If it
these different
wasn't true.
cultures? There's another reason that's possible for this, and it's not really Sasquatch related, but it's very interesting.
Okay.
Do you know what? Have you ever heard the term genetic memory?
Yes.
So something, for those that don't know, it's something that's so traumatic over such a wide population. Not even a wide population. It could be a bottleneck population that experienced some trauma. And then they raise their kids, like telling them these bedtime stories. But anyway, there was a time when Homo sapien, like what we are, and Neanderthals lived in the same regions.
Right.
So people will say it was like this evolution process going on. Well, these things coexisted. There's it's
we know
it's
that
kind of
from
it's kind
fossil
of the
records.
it's like the it's basically called like the Middle Earth hypothesis because there's evidence of small hobbit-sized people. There's evidence of Homo sapiens, but when you look at if you go and Google Neanderthal, it's humanized. We humanize it. But research is starting to show these things look more like monsters. They were bipedal. They were monstrous. They were 2-3 times stronger than your fittest man. They probably could see at night. And so these things probably, possibly, if this is accurate, they probably ate Homo sapiens. So you have these stories of like watch out for the boogeyman at night and things like that. Why? Because these things would hunt at night. They could come into a village, take whatever they wanted.
If you go down the rabbit hole of like lore of mythical creatures, it's right around the same time period that these stories across civilizations erupted, is also when we started creating civilizations. And so like there is an argument to be made that one of the reasons why we started making walled cities early was actually to keep things out more than warring nations. Like there's a reason why people built moats long before tactically we used moats. I don't know how to actually describe them. Like moats from the Middle Ages is what I'm talking about, but long before we used moats to defend against warring nations, people used natural water barriers as a means. And as I have been told, the Sasquatch myth, they don't like water. That's kind of like a thing. Why cities were built on islands with bridges, and the bridges led to large gates, and at night, why gates were only opened by passwords, not knocks, and all of these other, like all of these other things was like you had to utter a very specific phrase or a password. Why? Hey, there was a dude outside the gate with a key, and there was a guy inside the gate with a key, and if both keys weren't in the lock, the gate didn't open. Was because of stuff like this.
Well,
now, that's pretty far down the rabbit hole, but
That's way down there. That's Peter Rabbit.
that's Peter Rabbit.
Allegedly, these things would run into like if you don't look at even, I think some of these are tribal stories. I don't know if they are or not. Don't but these things could come into a camp at night, and they would take off. I'm not talking about Neanderthals anymore. We're talking about Bigfoot, but you can see the linkage here. They could take children.
He
They
meant
could,
Sasquatch, by the way.
Sasquatch. They could take
Two
children.
different species,
They
Justin. Get it
They
right.
could take the women and run off back into the woods before anybody could mount a defense or anything. If the men were away, say they're at war or they're off on a big hunt, and the women are there by themselves, what's there to protect them? You have to. If you have one way in and one way out of town, then you
take
are
very
much more
few
protected.
people to actually have to protect that.
Yeah, yeah, and you can say, well, it was protected against bears and small.
You don't build moats. You don't build drawbridges. You don't build. Now, again, yes, there is reasons behind those from military tactical benefits. But long before we had siege weapons, we were building tall walls. And people argue that, oh, well, the reason why we built tall walls was because they were taller than a human, and a human couldn't get over them. Like, and we had ladders, and we climbed trees. Like, we have done that for a long time.
Yeah.
There's not a reason to build bollards and towers and all of these things before people had ranged weaponry. Let's put it that way.
The stories I was telling you on our last podcast about the Native American cities, the pod builders, not the pod builders, the mound builders.
The what?
The mound builders. Remember I was talking about that?
Yes.
They had walled cities.
Right. Why? There was nothing here. And you can't tell me that one Egyptian, good Lord, oh my God. You can't tell me that one Indian nation was worried about another Indian nation,
Native American.
Native
We're not
American.
talking about India.
You know what I meant. Okay?
Well, yeah, it's a samurai.
Two
too.
native, Chinese chatter, North Korean chatter, whatever, same thing. Okay.
Oh, okay.
What I'm saying is like you can't say that and obviously they had wars between Native American nations, but not to the scale or points where they needed.
They probably didn't have
walled
catapults.
cities. Right, that's what I'm saying. People don't understand that the reason why you have a walled city is it's to protect against siege weaponry.
What?
You guys are talking all the way around it, and you're just not saying it.
Just say it.
Well,
The
what-
giants, the Nephilim.
Well, possibly, yeah. We hit on that. We talked about.
We talked about the one story
David
in
Goliath,
Afghanistan.
You know, the Goliath was not the only. He wasn't chained to a rock or anything with
Right.
the Philistines. He was one of many giants.
Yeah, if
among
you
the
actually
Philistine army.
read the like the account of Goliath. In the Bible, he's described, and it's very coincidental how he's described. If I get it wrong, please correct me. But it doesn't say like he was a man who looked like blah 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 blah. It says he stood X number of hands above a man. He had shoulders broader than a man. It's described in reference to a man far more than it's described as a man.
Yeah.
15-foot tall reference type
Right.
stuff.
And I don't.
But it's not like he was a man of 15 feet. He was however many cubits or whatever taller than a man. It's to put him in perspective. It'd be like me saying, oh, this person was taller than a horse. It's not saying he was a horse.
Now, the reference that they give in the Bible, okay, does put him at 15 foot.
Right, because it's not by cubits. I said that, but it's not.
But whatever the
Right.
measurement is, it's 15 feet.
And this
What's
was
the big
something. This was something that happened a lot in early American when we were developing, where you'd have a farmer and he's tilling a field, and he'd have a mound or something on his property.
Oh, yeah, we
and
talked
they
about
would
that.
excavate it, and you would have newspaper reports of skeletons.
9-foot, 12-foot skeleton
Yeah,
found.
and then the Smithsonian would come and they would disappear, but they'd be buried alongside normal sized skeletons too. And so this was something that was probably, if it pops up in more than one place, isolated incidences, it's not a trend. It's actually something that happened.
yeah.
Well, back to the Sasquatch, your question, why are they reported so often? Or tell me your question again.
No, I was saying, like, why in the 70s and 80s did we have so many more occurrences and people coming forward that they saw it versus today, and why with today's technology we seem to like. I mean, I say we haven't had a sighting in a while, okay, but like I don't know.
Not a verifiable.
Not a
site.
verifiable sighting. Because like my theory was exactly, like I said, I had like A, B, C, D. I had multiple theories, but like you said something that I had not thought of that kind of adds to me now, which is why I love this, because you guys make me think of things that I hadn't thought of in reference to things that I already.
You're welcome.
Yeah, like references like things I thought I've already kind of made up my minds on, but now it's like, oh, that's a good way of looking at it. You made a very good point. You saw something.
I did. Yeah.
You guys did, like multiple people. You came home. You didn't say a word. Okay, like let's put that into perspective.
We didn't even talk about it on the way home.
Right. Now let's put that into the perspective of if today, say I lived out in the country. I don't. I live in town, but say I lived out in the country. If I was out taking care of animals, as one does, I would have a weapon with me, right? Of course, hogs, coyotes, whatever. I'd have a weapon. Snakes, shotgun, whatever. And whatever you want to call it comes out of the wood line in any type of hostile or aggressive manner. I will be discharging said firearm. Let's say I bag Bigfoot. Now, you have two options in life, right? You can make the phone call and hope the newspaper shows up. You can make the phone call and hope the black helicopters don't show up and you and the farm just... it's so tragic, that fire that just took that farmer's life the other night, right? Or,
Do you know what?
and this is the real thing, you dig a hole and you push that thing into a hole and you don't ever talk about it. You don't tell your pastor. You don't tell your best friend, nothing. And maybe 20 years later, one of your neighbors goes, dude, this one night I saw something. You're like,
No, you didn't.
you still don't talk about it. Like, that's a good point. If today I saw Bigfoot, you know what I wouldn't do? I wouldn't put it on TikTok. You know why? Because as soon as I do, everybody would say, you're nuts.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't matter if I had
you're nuts.
even if I had footage, they'd be like, fake, deep fake, AI.
You gotta keep this in mind. Is often is a question: why has no one bagged one and brought it in?
I love the bagged and tagged.
Bagged and tagged. Okay, if you're in the woods hunting for deer, and this 12 to 15 foot tall creature comes across,
Defecation all over myself.
First of all, you have nothing in your artillery that will take this thing down.
Right. Well, yeah, right. I mean, there's a reason.
What you will do is you
gonna
will
piss it off.
You will make it angry.
Yeah.
Or say you get lucky, take a headshot, and it's gone. You think this thing's traveling by itself?
Right. That's a good point.
So there's probably that's the one you saw.
Right.
And usually when people hear like wood knocking, you know what wood knocking is, right?
I have no idea what.
So wood knocking.
Let's just assume that anything you guys talk about, I've never heard of.
Well, we'll talk about wood knocking in a second, but
in
usually
the most polite way possible.
but often people will hear or see one here, and then they hear or see something over
Something
here,
like sticks,
and when
like
they
clicky
and
click.
when they turn to look, and they look back,
it's gone.
it's gone. These things don't come by themselves. So my point is, if you did get lucky, took one out, how many are around you that you don't know where they're at?
Are you talking about like Jurassic Park? It's like you get lined up for that one shot, and then
Yeah,
they come. Clever girl.
yeah. Well, these things do eat meat. They are carnivores. I mean, they eat fruits and berries and stuff too, depending on.
There's a reason why they
They're
mutilate cows.
omnivores.
It's not for milk.
They're
Oh,
omnivores.
they don't mutilate cows. The Sasquatch don't. No,
We were just talking about mutilated cows.
that's not Sasquatch.
Dog man,
No.
We'll get to that. Hold on.
goat man, cow man.
Okay, we'll get there.
Okay.
Just hold on, grasshopper.
Yeah,
We'll get to that.
but
if
my
you're
point
in
is,
if
like-
you're in the woods and you have a weapon and you see a Sasquatch and you feel the urge to shoot something, we'll miss you. Don't mess with the Sasquatch.
I don't hunt with that large of a caliber.
but,
is what
but
you're
say this.
saying.
Yourself.
Say this. Say you do bag it,
Yeah.
right? You take it out,
Yeah.
and it's by itself somehow. Where are you taking it? Where are you taking it?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm not getting that thing.
It'd be like if you it'd be like if you took out the equivalent of like a giant elk.
Oh no, I see what you
Like
mean.
how-
Like, how are you going to transport?
How are you going
out
to transport it
800 pounds?
back?
Yeah.
Without the others coming after you and noticing. There's just no way. You can say, well, you can take pictures. Sure, you can take pictures. And then people will discredit you or say, well,
AI, it's
I've
fake.
also heard
It's-
stories of people, they take picture on their phone. Granted, they were older phones, like flip phones.
Oh, and then the photo just.
Yeah, and the phone's just like skitzed out. Like they'll call somebody or they'll send somebody a message.
We
You're
really
telling
need to
me-
get that
You're
X-Files
telling me
theme
with
song.
AI where it is now, where it can recognize things. If I took a picture of a Sasquatch, there's not some background program with the CIA or FBI where they can say, well, that's just deleted. That's gone.
What Sasquatch?
What's Sasquatch? Exactly.
The Battle of Ape Caves. There's something else for
Okay.
you to research.
Ape caves. I haven't heard of this one.
It's Mount St. Helens.
Okay.
As
The
in
Battle
like
of
the
Ape
like
Caves.
erupted Mount St. Helens?
Yeah.
Well, even before that, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you had Ape Canyon out there.
Ape Canyon. The
was
Battle
called-
of Ape Canyon.
Oh, you're talking about the prospectors?
Yeah.
I want the story.
Well, I'll give you the short and sweet, and then you can look it up.
Sure.
But it was 1800s or whatever, and out on Mount St. Helens, there was a location called Ape Canyon, and this was why was it called Ape Canyon? Well, who knows, right? But anyway, it was reported by the locals, i.e., the Native Americans, that there was resources in there. If you were looking for gold, you'll probably find it here. And so there was a group of them, and they knew they're going to be out there for a while, and it's northwest, and so they knew basically they're probably going to have to be there over the winter. Is my point. So they built a very durable, very thick cabin that was insulated. So if it did snow, it wasn't going to collapse or get too cold or anything like that. And they were out there, and then they started like talking to each other and have like a really weird feeling like they're being watched. Like they were getting kind of paranoid. So they were out there prospecting, looking for gold. And one evening they're heading back and they saw this giant humanoid. You good?
I'm good. I couldn't tell if I was going to sneeze or yawn. Or,
But they saw this
I'm
giant
good.
humanoid watching them from a distance. And it was kind of off standing on the side of a cliff, but watching them. And one of the guys took a shot, took it out, and it fell down a cliff. And they couldn't find it. This thing was gone. So like that's really weird. And so they go back to the cabin and they get ready for sleep, and it's probably dead at night, right? And then they hear these screams, like what I showed you. But not one scream, all around the cabin. And then something hits the roof of their cabin. And they realize that they're kind of near a cliff. These things are throwing rocks, boulders onto their cabin, trying to get in there, trying to get these people.
It's a snack box, and they're trying to get
Basically, yes, it's Cracker Jack box, and trying to get the prize inside.
Yeah.
And they survived. I mean, it withstood everything throughout the night. When day came, it stopped. And I don't know if this went on for a few days, but eventually they're like, you know what, this is not worth it. And I think they left most of their stuff, and they just took off and left. And it's all gone now because this was prior to Mount St. Helens blowing. And I mean, there's no, I don't even know if Eight Canyon's a thing anymore, but
Well,
geologically, the whole place is, geographically, the whole place has changed.
Ape Caves is because if you go up there, the tourist site is Ape Caves, just the lava tubes in Ape Canyon.
Caves.
Subtle.
Lava tubes.
Yeah.
Good
Dude,
Lord.
lava tubes are, there was some when I was stationed in Idaho. Those things are, they're you get in there
They're
and you don't
caves.
see anything but what's in front of you.
Right.
And it's creepy. It's creepy. I'll
Yeah, I
just
don't
put
do
it that way. Yeah, I'm not.
I don't. We were talking the other day with a friend of mine, and we were talking about like in Vietnam, they had like the tunnel rats that like went down the tunnels. They're like, here's a grenade, a pistol, and a flashlight. And I was looking at my buddy, and I was like, I have no idea how men could do that. He's like, why? It's like I would just look at whoever ordered me down there, just shoot me. They're like, why? I'm like, because I'm gonna die down there. Like it's not whoever's down there is gonna kill me. Like I'm gonna physically have a heart attack and die down there. I can't do that.
Yeah. No,
I don't like cramp. I don't like cramps.
I'm not a big fan of
I'm not
caves.
claustrophobic. Like I could be in a small environment. It's fine. It's the cave side of it. Like that's a different thing. And maybe that's a adaptation, evolutionary response, or whatever. Like my peoples don't like caves.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a reason.
When everything in you is telling you to stay out of
Yeah.
that cave, why?
There's a reason in Norse culture, like my ancestral, like bloodline, like I did the DNA test. I'm from over there, okay? They don't mess with caves. I have no idea why. Like, and they don't have like the dwarves mining in the mountains. It's not like the whole. There's not a real reason why they don't like caves, but there's like a lot of stories in Viking mythology that basically just be like, and then all these terrible things happen. Don't go in the caves. I mean, for a warring nation of like badasses, they don't like caves.
Caves are interesting things. And it's not always what's inside the cave, but where the cave leads might be an entirely different thing.
Oh, hollow earth, here we come.
Hollow Earth, like the Egyptian thing we were talking about. There's some pretty wild stuff.
So anyhow, when you're interviewing people who've had experiences, it's funny because at some point during that interview, they're going to realize what they're talking about. They're going to say, I saw a Bigfoot. I really saw a Bigfoot. It's going to dawn on them that they're telling a story and it's true. And they really saw something.
I 100% agree that somebody, like, you don't make up that stuff. I mean, okay, obviously, like you said, there's people who make it up. Obviously, there are people who, in a world of clickbait, it's about getting the views.
Sure.
Right. If I wanted a video to go popular on TikTok, all I have to say is, Bigfoot sighting, and I shoot a 10-second video of just the tree line at night, and people will watch it over and over and over again with the creepy music in the background, looking for the eyes or whatever, before they realize they've watched it 6 times. My video now has millions of views, and there's nothing there.
There are people on TikTok, probably on other things too, but they'll live stream looking for Bigfoot in the woods. And they're just walking through the woods. And people, sometimes they do see some stuff that's kind of unexplainable. They're just walking through the woods. And they're probably not even really that deep in the woods. They're like walking around the block or something. But people watch it and they look for these kind of things, trying to catch something. But
Well, that's that line, like I said, out of X-Files. People want to believe. I mean, there's a reason why all these stories have endured so much ridicule, skepticism, investigations, the risk of sounding crazy. I mean, nowadays it's like, I mean, every time I turn on the TV, I'm not even surprised anymore. It's like a one-up contest on who can be weirder. That's all I'm going to say. I mean, cancel me if you want to. I'm not picking any one group. It's just like, you can't just have a tattoo. You have to like tattoo your eyeballs now. You can't just have body piercings. You have to have, implanted horns. Yeah. It has to go that extra mile. So like, it's like a one-up contest of it. So, but these stories don't go one up. They don't get turned to 11. It's not like
when they do, it's red flags. Like, okay, this guy's making stuff up.
Nobody comes out and be like, I've been married to Bigfoot in a cave for the last 20 years and I have hairy children.
Well, the National
but they're not. National Enquirer. That's exactly.
National Enquirer stuff, yeah.
If I heard that, I'd be like, okay, we have a padded room right over here.
Well, we used to do that. So I do want to. So wood knocking. Let me define that for you.
Oh quick. Yes, I'm sorry. I had to.
Wood knocking is a way of defining territory.
It's got a little zip. Yeah. I don't remember. I'm so sorry. I do not remember what scotch that is. But if you ever come back, please let me know in advance. I have some better scotches.
No, we're good.
I mean,
we're good. Trust me.
He's never offered for any other guest. You're special.
I'll remind you though.
That's not true. I literally have. No. I have 3 or 4 scotches. So if that's not to your liking, please tell me. I can walk 10 feet and grab another bottle.
Don't worry about that.
But okay. let me continue.
I'm sorry.
This.
Yes.
So wood knocking. You take like a large limb or a small tree that's fallen. You bang it against another tree. That's called wood knocking, and you hear that out in the woods sometimes. And these are the Sasquatches saying, "Hey, you're getting close to my territory. You need to get out of here." At the old house, I always
thought that was a thing from Parent Trap where they click the sticks together to like attract mountain lions.
Oh, I don't know.
You know what I'm talking about?
Parent Trap.
Okay, like Disney Channel, Parent Trap, back in the.
He didn't watch Disney Channel. If I didn't. But let me finish my story.
No, but I mean, like, I was because that's a Native American thing. You click the sticks, and it attracts mountain lions for hunting.
Or you click antlers, and it'll attract game.
Yeah. All right. Interesting.
At the house the house they lived at when I was still in high school. Was out not far from here either. It was close to a creek. In fact, you could like throw a rock and hit the creek. These things walk along creeks, by the way. They follow creek lines.
As a lot of predatory animals do. Water attracts game. Game is what they hunt.
When my wife and I finally moved in together, we got a trailer. It was just a little, like a single wide trailer, falling apart, but it was what we did at the time, and we put it kind of across their driveway, still on the property. And never heard anything like this before I moved out there. But
where is this? Like
Rio Vista.
Okay. I just wanted to, so since we're always talking about areas and geographic.
But my wife, I didn't realize, I didn't connect the dots, but we'd be there and she'd be in bed. And I'd be on the other end of the trailer and hear like this knocking sound. It's like, what is that?
No, we moving.
What is that? And let me tell you this. It was so close and so loud you could lay in bed and the house is shaking with it. Like it's hitting something with such force that you can feel it in the house.
Like something hitting the house?
Well, not this time. I'm talking about wood knocking.
Oh, hitting. Like you can hear the thump.
This was kind of almost in forest, like right across from forest. Lots of trees. But there was something just whacking the crap out of it. Some nights were not as loud as others. But there's some nights you'd be laying there and it's like, what is that? Because it's like it's affecting the house. You can feel it. There was one night when we were there and something came and smacked the house, like rocked the entire single wide. And my wife came and she's like, what is that? You need to go outside and look. I was like, I'm not going outside looking. Yeah. But you can say, well, maybe a deer ran. No, it would have had to been like a moose.
Which
we do not have in Texas.
Yeah,
we got to make sure we put that. Yeah.
He called me and said, Dad, are you outside beating on my house?
I was about to say, I'm like, hey, Dad, do we want to make a confession? Like, man, I used to terrorize him by knocking these sticks on the house.
No, they had a shotgun in the house. I'm not going to go beat on their outside walls.
Yeah. It was.
I tell all of my friends, I'm like, hey, I'm all for pranks and having a good time and everything else. I'm like, there's only a couple things I don't recommend you try. Don't screw with me while I'm asleep. I'm not liable for anything I do. And please don't try to like come into my house at night because I just don't do it. Past that, it's all fair game and fun when it comes
Prior
to that.
to us putting that trailer out there, this was like an overground thicket, trees, lots of briar vines, things like that. We would go on vacation. Again, now, this was like when I was still in high school. We would all go on vacation as a family. We had my uncle and my cousin kind of house sit. And there was one occasion where they were out there hanging out on the front porch. And at the time, the neighbors, we had bought the land from the neighbors, and there was no differentiation, like no fences. So the horses would come and hang out kind of on our property sometimes too. And they were out there on the front porch, and all the horses were hanging out there, and they heard like this growl come out of this.
Ears popped up.
No, they took off. Like
Yeah,
they were
that's
like,
what I'm
they were
saying.
like,
they're like, I'm not doing
Yeah.
this, and they're off. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So it's
Oh wow.
yeah.
Yeah, we would paintball on this property. It was about 27 acres. The back half was heavily wooded. I mean, every kind of wood you can think of. Well, I shouldn't say that, but a bunch of woods. And so we'd paintball back there. And one night, my wife and I, we decided to walk back and check the paintball course, make sure everything's cool.
Oh, it's not just that you played paintball. You like had little like structures and stuff out
Oh,
there.
we
like,
played.
Yeah,
out there.
gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah. So we
I
walked
played
out there to
airsoft
check
back
it.
in the day. Same kind of thing. Pallets and had stuff set up for structures.
And we're standing underneath this horse apple tree,
Mm-hmm.
Bodart. Toughest wood I can imagine. And she goes, wow, look at that. And I look up,
Oh Lord.
and there's about 7 foot up, there's claw marks coming down that tree for about 3 foot. And I'm
No.
like, "Honey, I think it's time to go to the
No.
house. And she was already gone. So
There were big cats out there though.
I don't care. I don't care what it is. If it's a prank, it's gone too far
No,
at that
it wasn't a
point.
prank.
No, I'm
I was
saying,
on
like,
the back porch, and you called me out, but I was on the back porch one day. It was daytime, and I heard it like your classic like cougar like or like I can't even do it. I heard it like clear. I was like, holy crap! I mean, there was definitely some big cats out there.
yeah, we had some of the biggest bobcats I've ever seen out there. But the,
I hear coyotes every once in a while here, and I live in town, and there's a meadow over here. I say meadow. There's a little horse meadow over here, and then behind there's a little wooded area. Then of course past like Corsicana Street and stuff, there's some wooded areas. And we'll hear coyotes every once in a while because of course there's stray cats and stuff and everything else, but I've heard a mountain lion before, and I agree with what you said. Like there is a different tone as animals get larger. It changes, right? If you've ever been to the zoo and they have the tigers or lions, I've been to a couple zoos that have the I call them open enclosures, not the ones with like the glass where you can get close because they have that pit with the water or whatever.
Oh,
you know?
yeah, I don't
So
care.
like you feel like you're really close, but you're in a safe distance. But there's no glass, right?
like Waco.
Is Waco like that? I
got
haven't
some. You haven't been to the
there
zoo
in a
in Waco?
long
They
time.
got
I
it.
haven't been there in a long time, man.
Nice.
I actually
It's actually
volunteered.
my favorite zoo of all the
Really?
zoos I've been to.
I actually volunteered as a kid. I used to like I say work there, but like I did like the summer camps.
Aren't you a little too old to volunteer as a kid?
As a kid, I volunteered at the Fort Worth Zoo.
Don't be waving shiny things in front of him. He's gonna stay on track.
My job, I had the most depressing job ever. They would bring in a box of dead chicks, like baby chicks, and we had to like squeeze their little beaks open and put a pill in their beak, and then they would feed those to the like reptiles. And I remember going home and being like, this is the most inhumane thing ever. And I'd say I was a kid. I mean, we're talking like 10 or 11. And I think it was probably my fault because I probably said like, oh, I'm on a chicken farm. And they're like, we got the perfect job for you. And then years later, my cousin's husband, Chris, interesting guy. He and I were talking and I said something about like, yeah, I used to volunteer at the Fort Worth Zoo and with the chicks with the reptiles.
Fort Worth or Waco?
Fort Worth. As I said, I know I've been to the Waco Zoo, but I couldn't remember. It's been a long time, but I volunteered at the Fort Worth Zoo. And I just remember, like, not the color draining out his face, but like the childhood, like, flashed before him. And he just got, like, so he's like, yeah, I remember that too. And I was like, oh, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, yeah, I mean, it was kind of bad. Like, we had to feed the little chicks. I mean, they were dead, and put the little chick thing and feed the snakes. And he's like, what? I was like, yeah, we had to put the little pill, because I'm trying to figure it out. I'm like, dude, you look like, it was unnatural. Like, the way he was responding wasn't just like, ooh, this is kind of like a bad memory. It was like solemn. So I find out, this is terrible. I find out he worked there too.
Was he the one that killed the chicks?
He's the one that killed the chicks.
Oh my gosh.
They would put all the chicks in a 55-gallon drum and then hook it up to an engine exhaust. And just like
He
suffocate.
was a chicken choker.
Yeah, I guess. And I remember sitting there, I'm like, you know, they say like any terrible thing you have to keep in perspective.
You haven't eaten compared to that.
That memory never bothered me again. I was like, oh, I had this terrible job. I had to feed and I'm like, no, I'm good. I just imagine like hearing this like 55, because I grew up on a chicken farm here just outside of town. Like, I remember chicks. They're noisy. And I'm like, I just imagine like a 55-gallon drum of chicks like slowly getting quieter and quieter.
Oh my gosh,
And
that's
I'm like,
awful.
yeah, and every time I see Chris, I'm like, that's all I can think now when I see him. And I'm like, the little,
Get back to the cryptids.
Yeah,
the little spark of light.
I'm gonna dream tonight of a chicken
Yeah.
with a pill stuck in its
yeah. Well, talk about those cows. What do you think those were being slaughtered by them?
Well, you know, the ones in New Mexico and Arizona, Colorado even, they never figured out what was causing that. But the pictures that you will Google or find on the internet of these mutilated animals were it was the same that we were finding on the farm. As far as surgical precision for the rectum and the sex organs and the eyes and the mouth.
I'm going to start doing the smile thing. I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but I'm like, are you kidding me?
You got a phone right there, man. Google them.
I'd rather not look up cow sexual organ
No, look up
mutilation
cattle
on my
mutilation.
phone, but like,
Just cattle mutilation.
okay, so I thought this tied into to Bigfoot. So you're saying the mutilated cows is not a Bigfoot thing.
No.
So what is mutilating cows for their rectums and sexual organs? Oh, God.
You watch the X-Files, man.
Okay, maybe I need to go back and rewatch some more seasons. Like,
Well, yeah, because there's nothing. I mean, there's nothing. There are no tracks. There are no tire tracks. There are no.
I'm not going to sleep well
evidence
anymore.
of carry-on activity. You know, that's birds and stuff. There's nothing. It's just a cow that's sitting there, laying there. There's no blood.
Why do you think there's only like certain animals that are like this? Like we don't
Well, there's
hear about
horses,
those.
too.
Because of agreements that were made.
What do you mean? Okay, he's smiling. So you're either messing with me. We need a new rule on the podcast, right? We said we don't discuss politics. We don't really deep dive into religion other than like the history of it. Third rule. No, you can't be pranking me at any time. Like if you say something, I'm going to believe it. But that sounded like a prank. So
What if
an agreement with what?
What if a leader somewhere of a country
Like take me to your leader.
met with a representative of these aliens?
Please tell me it wasn't ours.
Can I finish? Met with a representative of these aliens, and they were like, we don't want you kidnapping any more of our people and experimenting on them. However,
Take the cows.
however, you could have free range of any kind of animal
He said free range. That's a dad joke
Yeah.
in there. Yeah.
in exchange for some level of technology.
So all of a sudden, a little Chick-fil-A sign that says like "Eat more chicken." It could be like human beings saying like "Abduct more cows."
Why cows? Because they're the largest, most abundant thing in North America.
Yeah.
You have
There's more
entire,
chickens on the face of the planet than people. There's probably a lot more cows too. Like, yeah.
but they're larger. So for experimentation purposes, sometimes you want something larger organs to work with.
There's a lady that
I don't know why I have a hard time believing that though.
I'm not saying that's right. I'm just saying that's a theory.
crazy. That's crazy. Not in a good way. Like that's a great. Like that's
Why
that
now?
is
Why would
Peter
an
Rabbit
advanced
down the rabbit hole?
Why would an advanced alien race need to negotiate anything with us at all? I don't know.
Why would they need cows? That's
But
more
they
my
don't.
question.
No, they don't. Their negotiation would be, we're going to take your cows or we're going to blow you up. Okay? Sure.
And you're just like, I'm so glad they picked the cows.
Yeah. But you're also asking, like, if you do assume it is aliens, because there are tales, look like Skinwalker Ranch, like someone would be looking at a cow. You never heard Skinwalker Ranch?
Okay,
Dude, we're gonna have fun
Hold on,
tonight.
Hold on,
Okay.
hold on.
Blind Frog Ranch?
Okay. What did I say? Let's just assume
Okay.
that anything you guys are going to talk about, I probably haven't. I usually pipe up with, "Oop, heard of that," or if you see my head do this, like, huh?
Yeah.
Blind Frog and
Why
Skinwalker
don't you
Ranch.
just tell us about the things you have heard about? And that
It's a
might
shorter
save us
list.
some time.
It is a shorter
What's
list.
up? So people,
I still think Santa's real.
Okay,
So you know.
I'm with you there.
but people that have reported cattle mutilations,
Okay.
they'll see a cow, they'll turn or leave 5 minutes, or even not even that long, come back to where the cow was. It's dead on the ground, fully mutilated. Things have been surgically removed.
Lost time. You're talking about like
Things have been surgically
abduction
removed.
stories where people like they lose track of time. you
I'm
mean?
saying that there's a process that is so quick and so efficient that you could leave it for 5 minutes and everything that needs to be done has been done. And many of these have been reported to have a low level of background radiation in the vicinity also. So Skinwalker Ranch, Blind Frog Ranch, if I can say that. These are all areas that are like hotspots for that. Kind of like you're talking about Oklahoma being a
But they're
Bigfoot
like-
hotspot.
It's like an actual ranch. That's what I'm getting.
It is a
at.
Okay,
ranch,
it's
yeah.
a Uinta
Okay, s-
Basin.
dude,
It's-
Skinwalker
So it's like
Ranch
it's like
is
the
like a-
4-H ranch. It's not like
No, it's an actual ranch.
okay, so it's just called not Skywalker Ranch.
Skywalker Ranch.
Skinwalker Ranch is just
Can
like
I-
the name. of it.
Okay, I'm going to tell some stories about Skinwalker Ranch. There's actually
Where is this?
it's in Utah.
Utah.
Oh,
Uinta
okay.
Valley,
Sorry, and
Uinta
then
Basin.
Blind Frog is like
It's
close
right next
by?
to it. Yeah.
Yeah, just
Okay.
right across the hill.
So there was some farmers. I don't know names, so you can look this up. But there were some farmers that bought Skinwalker Ranch. When it was like 80s, 70s, 80s, something like this, and they bought it sight unseen. They raised cattle. They were associated for raising really high quality cattle. They even went so far as to say, like, when you're raising cattle, there's a certain margin of loss that is normal for just this, like,
Well, yeah,
sickness and stuff like that.
So many of them die. some of
His
them
was
get
his was
sick.
like a fraction of that. Like, he was a very good cattle rancher, and he just needed more land, or he just wanted to relocate or whatever.
Right.
So they bought this ranch sight unseen, and you get there, and they get in the house, and they're like, "Hey, why does every door have deadbolts on both sides of the door?"
like keyed.
like deadbolts. Why do all the cabinets have locks on them? Why do all the windows have bars over them? Yeah, and so there's like a whole series of really strange activity out there. One of the biggest things that was really strange is the farmer was out there with their like a calf, and out of the woods comes a wolf. A much larger wolf than really would make sense. And it comes right up to them, totally unafraid, not aggressive or anything. They were even able to pet it. And then it goes over to where the calf was and starts attacking the calf, like I guess the calf was in like a fence. It starts trying to pull the calf through the fence. Dude has like a really high powered rifle or something, unloads it into the animal, like flesh is coming off. No evidence that it's being bothered at any way at all, right? And they notice like it has like this weird smell. It smells like death too, and it just gives up on the calf and just trots back into the woods. No blood or anything like that. No evidence of anything going on there. There were other reports of more dogman like stories, but also Bigfoot's been sighted out there. Strange lights. Portals, which is why I say, like,
I'm taking it not like the ones on the cruise ships.
no, it'd be like one of the stories was they saw like a light on the horizon, not on the horizon, on the ground, and they thought it was trespassers or maybe poachers or something like that. And so they approached quietly so they can, because they figured if they knew they're coming, they'd just run off. So they wanted to surprise these people and be like, hey, you need to get out of here. But as they got closer, they realized it wasn't a flashlight or a headlight, but it was blue. And this was at nighttime. And they noticed, like, hey, they like looked through the scope. It looks like a
puddle of water.
like a daytime sky
Oh.
within this light. This is a portal, and they identified things coming in, like
Sliders.
humanoid creatures.
Oh God.
Which is why this is,
See, like,
which is why I say like this is why I think
I
like
don't know
these
what's
things
more
maybe
terrifying,
travel.
the thought of seeing that, or what I would have to do afterwards. Because like you can't go back to normal life.
Would you
after
put
that.
deadbolts on all your doors and put bars on the windows?
No, I would
Yeah.
move. I would be gone.
That's
I
all
wouldn't,
you got, man. You can't go anywhere. That's it.
bro.
It's
I wouldn't.
620 acres or 612.
I don't care. I don't care.
What are you going to do? Everything.
I would be a
in there.
bum on a beach somewhere.
Your best option is just go down to the dollar store and buy a bunch of clean underwear.
To me, like that's the part of those kind of stories that I have a hard time believing, because I almost could say I could understand why somebody in like the frontier West, there's literally nowhere to go. They don't have even enough supplies to go somewhere else. I'm not saying that the outcome would be good for me, but I could afford to buy my family tickets to get the hell out of here. Now, it would take a long time. I have to start over, buy a bunch of stuff, right? Like, I could fill up my gas tank and get a long way from here, and I could log in remotely tomorrow from work from somewhere else, and my boss would be like, "What's up?" I'm like, I don't live there anymore.
Now, so
Why
all
on
this
God's
stuff that he mentioned happened 100 years ago.
no? But it's like, why would you stay there and like, oh, I'm
100
going to
years
replace
ago,
the
where are
locks?
they going to go? How are they going to leave?
No, I'm talking about the dudes just, oh, I'm going to unload with this large caliber rifle, and this thing's going to walk off without being phased. And my answer is deadbolts.
They were already there. That's when they bought the house. These things are already there.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And they're like, why is everything deadbolted?
You got YouTube.
Oh, no.
I know you have YouTube.
What's funny is they made.
Skinwalker Ranch.
No,
Blind Frog
that's
Ranch.
nightmare fuel, man.
But the thing is, what's weird is nothing happens. It's like you have the Skinwalker Ranch as a documentary, like on History Channel, I guess, probably,
Well,
or Sci-Fi,
YouTube.
and it's like it's on Netflix, I think.
I don't know.
But it's like
on the
nothing
Skinhead.
happens. It's like episode. It's like where's all the weird stuff they're talking about? Nothing happens.
Now, if you're scientific, Dr. Travis Taylor goes out and spends a lot of time on Skinwalker Ranch. I hope we don't get in trouble for name dropping here.
No, you can.
But
we can talk about people because I mean that's literally giving them the.
Recognition or
Yeah, I mean it's like if we cited work, we can quote people as long as we cite it.
There and he kind of helps head up the astrophysics of the research. And then you have other guys out there who are, high profile, scientists and stuff like that. And they come out there and they run experiment after experiment after experiment and trying to figure out where this portal is. Why is it here? And by the way, what is this huge metallic orb that we found underneath this plateau? Yeah, we haven't got there yet.
There are weird things, and they do research. And a lot of it's like this is not normal. All the research out there is like this is not. I'm saying like as far as seeing strange things on camera, nothing like that. But as far as like the scientists going out there and doing research, yeah, it's a weird place.
Oh, there's like unknown background radiation, or
Yeah.
there's electromagnetic fields, and there's. Oh, let's be honest. We've had the Bermuda Triangle for how long?
2 or 3 days.
Yeah, and we still, unless I'm mistaken, you are far more sciencey than me. Do we have an explanation for why there is an area between these three land masses where compasses behave weirdly to this day? Is there an actual reason, or is it just?
Well, it's electromagnetic field.
Well, that's what I'm saying. But they don't know why the electromagnetic field is there.
Well, it's because it's Bermuda Triangle.
Right. Okay, that's what I'm getting at. Thank you. Yes. That's what I'm saying. Like, I have always been a fan of science fiction. I love science fiction because the science fiction of today is the future of tomorrow, right? We had robots that talked to us and robots that walked and all kinds of stuff growing up all the way back to like the 60s with like Lost in Space, Danger Will Robinson, and all that fun stuff. And now we have like walking, talking robots, right? My vacuum cleaner is a robot in my house, right? And that was probably something on like the Jetsons cartoons when you were a kid.
Probably spies on you while you're sleeping.
Probably. I wouldn't actually be surprised. But like all of that stuff was science fiction. Some kid watched it and went, I'm going to do that. Right? People talk about like, oh, electric cars being so advanced these days. We always talk about Teslas and stuff like that. That technology is 100 years old. That was popular before the Model T was popular.
The Jetsons, man.
Right. Like we talked about having flying cars when we were kids. Like I remember watching on TV. They have it now. Like you can legitimately buy one. They're expensive, but you could buy a flying car. You could buy all jet packs. I remember what, dude, you want to go off nostalgic deep end? One of my favorite shows I ever watched as a kid was The Rocketeer.
Oh, I thought that was boring. I like that show.
Oh my God, I love that movie. Okay. But you can have that now. Like they have it. The little dudes and the little arm.
You could have had it
things
back
and-
then. It was on VHS.
I'm just saying, I've always liked science fiction because all science fiction, I hate that it's called science fiction. It should just be called Science Not Yet, right? Star Trek, I have no doubt in my mind that at some point we will have starships capable of that kind of exploration. It is not going to be anywhere in our lifetime.
We got to get to the moon first.
Hey, explain to me why Captain Kirk is still alive. The original.
You talking about Shatner?
Yeah. Why is he still alive? He's like 900 years old.
Time warp.
Let's go back to the.
I didn't mean to go off on a tangent there. I just mean like I
No, it's
love
fine.
science
We
fiction.
changed it a lot. It's okay.
Yeah, I love science fiction because some people look at science fiction and they like my wife. She looks at science fiction. She's like, "Oh, that's unbelievable," or what? Like that's not her thing. But she likes like fantasy books and stuff. She reads a lot of like vampire books and stuff like that. That's her thing.
You know, science fiction is a lot different than watching some, show about a giant cyclone with it's got CGI animation.
Are you talking about Sharknado?
Yeah, okay. I've never seen it, but I've actually heard it's not a bad flick.
There's like 5 of them too, so I mean it can't be that bad.
But watching science fiction is different than watching something like Sharknado or
True.
Trimmer or
It
anything
goes
like
it
that.
goes beyond the realm of. To me, science fiction. I think of things like Stargate, right? Where I'm like,
That's a good show.
It's a great show. It's one of my favorites. Hands down, one of my favorite TV shows. It is on that TV whenever I'm out here editing videos and stuff.
It's-
that's on Stargate.
A good show is one that leaves you with something to think about, thought provoking. Sorry if I watch Sharknado,
Yeah.
Shark Tornado,
Not a
whatever
thing.
it's called. Probably the only thing I would be thinking about afterwards is a tuna sandwich.
Yeah.
Okay.
Versus like The Meg. Have you seen The Meg? The Megalodon movie. It's called The Meg.
Oh, I may have.
I love that movie because and my wife's like, how is that any different? I'm like, it's believable.
Megalodons did exist.
Like, we know megalodons existed.
We still find courses of
Tasmanian tiger. We thought it was gone.
whales with giant teeth
I was-
marks that make
that's
no
what I was
sense.
gonna
They
say.
did Megalodon still in the.
I mean, if
Mariana
coelacanths still exist,
Trench.
why could the megalodon not?
That's the sandpaper fish thing, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean,
What?
the coelacanth.
Oh, the silicon, yeah.
yeah. Like, I mean,
We used to catch them when it rained.
I hate I hate that as a people we talked about this. Science has turned its back on things that are unexplainable, and by saying, "Oh, we've explained it as being false," we have turned our back on a lot of like the mystic arts, the mystic schools, herbalism, and things that have predated civilization of man. Alchemy, we have turned our back on it because we know better now. Now, granted, when it comes to things like quantum theory, when it comes to things like faster than light travel and particles and mathematics, obviously we have advanced way past anything that Archimedes mathematically proposed. That's the way I think about it. But science is not all just math. Science is a very large umbrella that covers everything. And I feel like they've just taken the umbrella and said, oh, no, this is modern science. It's like, Every time we turn around, you were talking about the plant. Oh God, this is going back, I think, to our very first episode of the podcast.
Or the plant.
That the indigenous people referred to as stonebreaker.
Devil's lettuce. What are you talking about?
No. Oh, dude, you the one we were.
I never.
Stonebreaker?
No, I never did that.
We were really,
There were-
toasted at this point. You were telling me about there was this plant in the rainforest that they asked them, what is the name of this plant? They told them the name, and it came, like, their translation was stonebreaker.
No,
They're
I
like,
never told that story at all.
And then
There is evidence of.
and then they were like, and they find out that, oh, hey, this is really cool, this plant. And they asked it, why do they call it that? We don't know. Why? Oh, we took some whatever. We smoked some peyote, and the sky spirits told us that this was called the stonebreaker plant. Then modern scientists, they take it back, they start studying and everything, and they go, wow, there's an enzyme in this that literally breaks up kidney stones. And they went back to the tribe, and they're like, hey, what do you use this for? And they were like, we don't know. It's just called the stonebreaker plant. And I'm like, to me, that's science fiction.
I never told that story, but there was story.
I'm going to look that up.
There was a
while you're
story
talking.
of, I believe it was the Amazon, and there's some explorers, and there's a type of bird that makes this nest in holes in cliff, like on rock faces. And for a long time, they're like, I wonder, like, are they just finding these holes and building their nest in them or what? And so they're observing the birds, and the birds would go and take, this was a long time ago, we don't know what it is today, but they'd find a particular kind of plant and carry it in their beak to the cliff, and then rub the plant on the rock, and then pick the rock out. So there was an enzyme or something in the plant itself that would break down the rock and make it almost like a pudding. And
What?
they would use that to remove. They'd pick out the rock then, and then they'd build their nest in that hole that it left behind.
What? Mm-hmm. The name of the plant is the CHANCA PIEDRA.
Oh no!
Chancha pedra. And it is a plant best known as a potential kidney stone cure. Mm-hmm. But the people who told them that have no written history or knowledge other than the indigenous name, Chanca pedra, whatever, literally in their native tongue. They don't know why. They were told that I think they said the sky spirits, if I'm insulting their culture, because that wasn't it. But the sky spirits came to them and said, this plant is called the stonebreaker plant. And now modern medicine, you can buy, you go online right now on Amazon, you can get tea for this plant.
But we know,
it's a
we know plants create enzymes to break down rock because they grow, they put their roots
I'd never
through it,
heard
right?
of that. Oh, well,
And
yeah, that's a good point.
This is all on like a larger scale. And I've always wondered, because we don't know how, say like the pyramids, we don't really know. You can say you know, but you don't.
I love it when
we
people
don't
say
really
that.
know
We
how
know
they
were built.
how they built it, or how they moved the giant stones. We don't even know how they carved the stones because the rocks are harder than anything they had at the
Or
time.
how they cut the perfect circles.
But what
and all that.
if there's a species of plant, a family of plant that's worldwide that has the capability, either when processed or used directly, soften stone,
Right.
and then you can use that because if you look at, there is a obelisk. Excuse me, 1 second. There's an unfinished obelisk.
There's no coughing on this podcast.
There's an unfinished obelisk in Egypt
right.
where it was carved directly into the bedrock, but it wasn't taken out directly. But there are what looks like, and this is also, I believe, can be found in some Mayan sites, where it looks like giant scoops were taken out of the rock, like it was scooped. So what if there's a plant you could process or whatever, apply it to the rock, and scoop out the rock? It doesn't matter if all you have is copper.
Yeah, because that's the point to how we don't know how they built things is because they didn't. It's not like today we couldn't answer the question. It's with the tools of their period.
We couldn't even do it today.
Well, that's true.
You'd
Yes,
have to.
That's
You'd have to have diamond. The type of stone that was used. The type of stone that was used to cut. You would have to use diamond.
What good would it be to take ice cream scoop size divots out of an obelisk? What is that all about?
Stonehenge.
No, so if you want to create this obelisk and remove it from the dirt, from the bedrock it's in, you soften the stone with this plant,
Compound,
This
yeah.
spook
and then you
plant.
can take a scoop of the rock, and that rock has been removed. So it's just like if you're chipping away with a chisel, you slowly remove a little bit of rock at a time. This is just done a different process
But for what purpose do you remove the little bit of the rock?
to carve out the obelisk.
Oh, so you're saying that, like, whatever, I'm going to call it
Because
rock.
I thought you were trying to figure out how to move it
No,
or make Rocky Road ice cream. I don't know.
no. This doesn't answer how it was moved or how the stones were lifted or anything
You're
like
talking
that.
about how it was chiseled.
How it was
formed.
actually carved. Yeah, because we don't even know how the rocks were carved or anything like that. Because
We really don't know how they were transported. I mean, it's like when we talk about things like ancient Egypt, and we've talked about this too ad nauseum, the sheer weight of these stones, it not to mention their precision, not to mention their placement, not to mention, I mean, all of those things. You take some nowadays, you want to lift a 4-story brick building and transport it across town. We have the technology. We have trucks, we have hydraulic jacks, we have the technology to lift a building and move it from here over to there.
that'd
right?
still be really hard.
It's still hard, but we have it's engineering, right? Modern day engineering has access to technology they didn't have. So when you go back and look at things, it's like, oh well, we can do that today. So obviously they figured out a way. That's not the point. It's back then. The best thing we can come up with is they took a bunch of slaves, tied some rope to a rock, and pulled it across some telephone poles. Like, I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but like, that's the best we can come up with for how they moved something. And my argument is, we can't replicate that.
Here's the thing: the quarries that we know that they took the stones out of,
Right.
were hundreds of miles away from
And
the
that's my
pyramids.
point. Like,
And they were saying within the time frame that they claimed that these pyramids were built,
it would never be able to be completed.
they had to place a block like every 2 seconds, every 3 seconds.
Yeah, yeah.
To get it constructed. It's just not feasible.
It's not feasible with modern day architecture, with modern day technology. And it was like, oh, well, that's just the power of enough people. They were talking about the oh, God, I watched some TikTok the other day. They were talking about the bridge they built in China, this bridge that everybody said was an impossibility. We couldn't build it. And they built it in like 3 months or something insane.
Yeah.
And they were like, because of, they put 250,000 people involved in it. The huge dam project that they built in China that they completed in like 6 months. And they were like, oh my God, if we had that project in America, it would have taken like 30 years. And they compared it to like the Hoover Dam project and how many decades it took to build that. Because just having to get the concrete to cool and all of the logistics. And then, like you said, we're going to build 3 pyramids, not one. We're going to do it 3 times. We're going to do it in a manner that still to this day, we think we understand, but we don't know. Oh, and by the way, every single person who's involved in quite literally the largest construction project, I would argue, even by today's standards, in humankind's history.
And perfectly align it at the same time.
And no one will ever know how we did it. There's no stories passed down. There's no, like you said, even when the people showed up from Europe and said, hey, we love these giant things that you built. Where did they come from? And all these people were like, we don't know. They were here when we got here.
They were covered up.
Yeah, but my point is,
They were all understand. The Sphinx and all that was all understand.
but my point is, these
Okay.
people were like,
So
they were,
Enoch,
we don't know.
Enoch, you've heard of him.
Yeah. Well,
He-
we talking
he
about
was-
Enoch that's in the Bible or Enoch that's in the other book that's not in the Bible?
Well, it's the same
He's in the
thing.
Ethiopian Bible.
Yeah. There's a whole book of Enoch.
Several,
That's what I'm saying. It's in the Ethiopian Bible.
Right.
Enoch.
The whole book of
the
Enoch.
the one Enoch. Okay.
Oldest man to have ever lived, other than Adam, 900 and something years, according to the Bible record.
That's Methuselah.
I thought Enoch lived to like 900 and something.
Enoch is
Enoch never died.
never died. He was caught up in the fire chariot.
Okay,
Okay.
I got to go
Now-
back to Sunday school and read that one again.
Now,
Okay.
Enoch was on Earth some thousands of years before the pyramids.
Right.
Okay. There are writings that have been found that said that the mysteries of building the pyramids came from Enoch.
Okay.
In other words,
Writings found where?
in Egypt,
Oh, okay.
in the tombs or in the wherever. But they're not going to show you these papers, these documents. But somebody's going to Google this and say, "Oh, that guy's a big old liar." Well, I may be, but this is what I've heard. That there are, the Dead Sea Scrolls,
Right.
and
We were talking about that.
the missing books of the Bibles and stuff
We were
like
talking
that.
about that.
One of these books is supposed to have in it where Enoch came back and brought the secrets for building the pyramids.
I have a copy of the.
Oh yeah, he just bought that book.
I just
didn't he?
I just bought that book because I haven't started reading it yet. Because I told him I'm like I read a little bit of one of them and I was like, bro, this is deep.
But what's funny about
what-
that?
There's
book
a
you talking about?
it's okay. So the Bible as we have it today is 66 books, right? I did not realize that the Dead Sea Scrolls are literally what we would refer to as Gnostic texts,
Right, yeah.
right, from a specific sect or group of Jews who were cast out of the majority of Judaism. Let's put it that way. The Jewish leaders of the time said, we don't really agree with the way you interpret things. We're going to cast you out. They were literally like expelled, I guess you could say. And the only historical accounts we have is that they were sent out into the wilderness. That's all they said. They were what's the word I'm looking for? They were
Ostracized.
ostracized.
Exiled.
Exiled to the wilderness. That's the word I was looking for. They were exiled to the wilderness. And so later on, much later on, the time of Jesus was during the Jewish faith. People who followed Christ afterwards are referred to as Christians because they followed Christ, hence Christian. There was the Council of Nicaea, which was I forget the year. Much later, the church leaders of the time, Paul's church, key point, Paul's church that he established after Jesus was gone. They got together and said, "Hey, there's a whole bunch of churches, kind of all over Europe, whatever, all over the world. Everybody believes a little different. Protestant, Catholics, whatever you want to call it, all these different faiths, Judaism. Let's have like a convention. Let's get together and let's agree. Okay, 66 different books. What else is being read as historical? Because that's what they are. They are historical accounts. The book of Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, they are historical accounts. And they read all of them. And there were some that were not adopted. Let's just put it that way.
Sure.
Now, I'm not arguing the validity of the Bible at all. I'm not saying that. But there was a group of people who decided, hey, this is a little questionable for whatever reason. We're not going to accept it as Holy Scripture. That's the caveat. The Dead Sea Scrolls that were found were
Inspired by God.
exactly,
Yeah.
Holy Scriptures. They were all writings of the period. We know because they're all from the same area, all the same language in some cases. But even when they found the Dead Sea Scrolls, which were Gnostic texts that were found in a cave out in the, quote, wilderness of nothing,
Right.
they went through and they said, this one we're going to accept, this one we're not. If it wasn't accepted, they're referred to as Gnosticism or Gnostic beliefs. If it was accepted, it was therefore referred to as Holy Scripture. And that is what has been bound together today as the 66 books of the Bible. In these Gnostic scriptures, there's also several that were not accepted that are around the same time period and tell a similar story. Let's put it that way. not a similar story. They actually tell a very, very, very different story, but they're from a similar time period. And there's things like the Book of Mary Magdalene,
Right.
the Book of Enoch, the Book of Thomas. Actually, it's not called the Book of Thomas. I think it's called the Revelation of Thomas, whatever.
Well,
There's
it's a story about Jesus growing up as a child.
So I don't
There's
believe.
the Apocryphon of John, which Apocryphon literally just means the story, but the story of John. There's all these other books, and one of them, the Book of Enoch, that I haven't read, but the Book of Enoch, yes, goes into like
But
a
listen,
Bible,
listen to this. This
a
is
Bible
important
book
that you
that
don't
was
understand this. The Book of Enoch may have been in the DC scrolls and may be found among them,
right.
but it was never lost.
What do you mean?
The Book of Enoch is in the Ethiopian Bible.
Oh, yes. Well,
Like it has always been in the Ethiopian Bible.
the Council of Nicene was only over, like I said, I didn't point out Paul's church because I'm trying to like point fingers at it and say that's not the real. I'm just saying like that group of doctrine led to the adoption of those 66 books.
Mm-hmm.
You're right. If you get a copy of the Ethiopian Bible today, it does not have 66 books.
It has more than.
I want to say
It's
it's
like 80 something.
Yeah, it's 80 something because it includes all of the Gnostic texts.
Now, the Gnostic texts that you're referring to, a lot of them were different books of what we called the Old Bible, the Old Testament, and several that were of the New Testament
Yes.
as well. So,
Book of Enoch being of Old Testament origin,
right. and-
Apocryphon of
now,
John
the
being
book
New
of
Testament.
Enoch was not among the Dead Sea Scrolls, as far
No,
as we know.
no, it wasn't.
But the other books were and have been canonized into, well, over several different canonizations into what we have now.
Right, right.
And
As accepted Holy Scripture doctrine.
and to me, if I don't know how we got on this as opposed to Bigfoot, but to me, the
Welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, that's how we roll.
That's how we roll.
Israel sees a squirrel, and then we're talking about squirrels. That's just.
Well, if you're talking about Enoch and the book of, and
Yeah.
how they talk in the book of Enoch, it discusses and talks about
I
construction of the
started
temple.
out trying to get my degree in theology and wound up in criminal justice. Okay.
That's wow.
Yeah, but the point I was trying to make is I don't know, I forgot, but go ahead.
Did you know that the Ark of the Covenant is most likely in Ethiopia? Did you know that?
No,
Back in the time of King
I
Solomon,
always thought it was in the Smithsonian after Indiana Jones
there
found
was
it.
there was a I don't remember the name, Sheba maybe. There was a queen in Ethiopia that traveled to Jerusalem and supposedly had relationships with King Solomon. And several years later, a prince from Ethiopia came and traveled to Jerusalem. Lo and behold, it's King Solomon's son that he had with her that he didn't know about. And when he traveled,
Which doesn't surprise me, considering he had what 600 wives and so many
and when
concubines.
he returned home, no.
Oh, okay.
When he well, you can leave it out. When he returned home,
You have one over there you haven't even touched.
he brought the Ark of the Covenant back with him to Ethiopia.
Sorry, keep talking. I'm fetching our guest a drink here.
Yeah, that's all. So if you look at Ethiopia, it practices a very specific. I don't know what the actual term is, but they're Jewish. They're Jewish, and it's a very specific type of belief system that is unique to Ethiopia as well as the area around Jerusalem around that time.
The people of Ethiopia believe that they are among one of the 12 lost tribes of Israel.
I did not know that.
Yeah. And
Out of curiosity, what tribe? Obviously, with my name being Israel, I've always had kind of an affinity to the 12 tribes, but
I couldn't tell you.
I'm just
because I don't
curious,
know.
like,
but one
because
of
each
the-
one kind of had like a history.
Right.
So,
But yeah, the son of Solomon. Let's see, he went and he visited King Solomon, and at some point they created a replica of the ark. And when he went back, he switched it out and brought the original back to Ethiopia. And
Wow.
they staunchly believe that it is in this small building in Ethiopia that is a church. and they have guys walking around there with AK-47s. The priest saying, "You're not coming in here. Take our word for it. The Ark of the Covenant is in this building."
If memory serves me correct me if I'm wrong, but like the Crusades, the Knights Templars were originally sent to Ethiopia, but never made it because of.
Well, I don't know about that.
If memory serves me, I think Skip was the one telling me about this. That like because of that rumor, let's just put it a rumor. I mean, it wasn't a rumor. They were telling the world we have it, and it got back, and the rest of the world was like, oh well, if they have it, we want that. But they never made it that far because, obviously, geographically, there's a lot of people you have to get through to get to that point. But that's
In all
fascinating. Even
likelihood,
today.
it probably is not actually in that location.
Oh, I disagree.
You
totally.
you would
Well, I think
no
it-
no no.
you
If
would
you want
tell
to protect
people it's
it,
there.
you would tell them
Yeah.
it's there. Give all appearances that is
And it's
heavily
buried,
guarded because that's
buried
where
in
it's
a
at.
cave somewhere.
Well,
Go to the caves again.
I have
It's in Blind Frog Caves.
there are families in Ethiopia that claim that they are protecting the Holy Grail, and their families done it for generations.
Look
There's
at that.
probably several replicas.
They're part of the holy priesthood.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, I'm going to bring up Indiana Jones again, but that was
guess
literally the
it'd
whole
be-
premise of Indiana Jones. The guy that, like, we've protected the Grail for, however many generations and all. Like, if anyone has it, you want to talk about a
Wait,
secret.
did I say the Holy Grail? I'm sorry. I
You
meant
said
the
the
Ark of
Grail,
Covenant.
but- yeah.
Ark of the Covenant. I'm sorry.
I guess it'd be from the tribe of Aaron, because
They were the
are
priests. They were the priests. That's
Hey,
why I was curious. Like,
Aaron?
Aaron.
Aaron?
That's fascinating. I mean, so I love history in general. I mean, especially that part of the world, because it is, like you said, when people showed up and they asked questions, it's kind of reminiscent of when the settlers originally came to the New World. They were asking questions about myths like Bigfoot or anything else. And like I asked him, like, well, why wouldn't they tell them? And I'm like, well, why would they tell them? I'm like, the settlers show up and they're like, here's smallpox blankets and everything else. And they didn't like, why would you trust these people? We're not gonna tell you anything. Versus it's exactly the same thing. If this is the most closely guarded holy relic that your ancestors
Well,
potentially
if the people that
descendants
are
of the
protecting
priests-
it tell you that's where it's at, that's not where it's at. Look at like World War II, like when the Nazis are going after holy relics. If you say this is where it's at and you heavily guard it and it's not really where it's at, and some force comes in and takes it, they think they have it, they leave, and you go back to the cave it's really at
Right.
and say, hey, we gotta switch things around, we gotta move things.
Well, it's like what we've said before. Like I think it's really funny that like if you study World War II, and I have yet to have anybody that's a World War II historian explain this to me. There is absolutely zero tactical advantage to the entire African Corps, the entire African campaign. Like World War II was Europe. There's really no reason for the Axis powers, let alone the American forces, to be involved in any conflict in Africa. And people are like, oh, well, I mean, that was the foothold that they had to get into Europe, and then it was, Italy and Salerno and all these other. I'm like, no. I'm like, Africa is a whole nother, like, that's all way over here. And then knowing all of there's a lot of money. Well, but
Gold and
I would,
diamonds.
that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. And then, of course, Hitler with his obsession with all of the occult.
The whole world power thing.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
yeah, that too. Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. And it was a seat of, I mean, I don't want to get this wrong. I don't know exactly the religious sect that that particular party of the 1940s aligned themselves with, but that was kind of considered the second seat of religion. That the heart of religion is the Middle East, North Africa, that whole area. So obviously, if you're kind of trying to establish yourself as the ruling elite of both race and religion, you're probably going to have to go up against that at some point. But
Well, let's look at it this way. Okay, for years, we in the West have depicted Jesus as being a fair-skinned guy with dark hair and blue eyes.
yep, nope.
And in reality, the Bible says he was not pleasant to look at. And
Probably what we would now refer to as somebody of Arab descent.
Arab descent. Well, he
Yeah.
spoke Arabic. He spoke Arabic.
Yeah, that's right,
And
true.
he practiced
Or
the Jewish
Aramaic.
Aramaic.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, Jesus, believe it or not, was not a Christian.
No, that's what I'm saying. Christians are people who follow Jesus.
Yeah.
Jesus was a Jew. Jesus, well, I shouldn't say was a Jew. Was raised by Jews. When he returned from the wilderness, we were talking about this. I'm like, I love the whole like.
Cut.
Like,
No, I mean, Jesus.
well, we can
was a
cut this
Jew.
part out, but like Jesus returned from the wilderness, and the first thing he did was really piss off the ruling elite of Judaism.
Yeah.
He showed up and said, "Hey guys, by the way, all these little things that you've done, you've spun everything out of control. Let me flip over some tables. Let me put you in your place. I'm going to stir things up." What'd you say? He ruffled some feathers. I like the way you put that. When he returns from the wilderness, he ruffled some feathers, which also coincidentally, we were joking about, we can cut this all out, but we were also joking about the fact that isn't it kind of weird that there's this group of Jews that are off in the wilderness, that have been exiled to the wilderness, that have these Gnostic texts from the wilderness.
Well,
And
history does repeat itself.
And Jesus goes to the wilderness and then comes back and starts flipping over tables of coin like collectors and telling the Sadducees and Pharisees, which coincidentally the Sadducees and Pharisees are the two groups that exiled the others. They're like, "Hey guys, you're all screwed up. Let me show you what I learned in the wilderness."
I just think Jesus would be really excited if he came back and go to a super church and see all the awesome shops they have set up.
Yeah, I at
The
church
merch.
last Sunday,
the merch. Yeah.
I gave a message,
Yeah.
and at the conclusion, I said, bless
I
his
would
heart,
love to come to your church and hear you give a lesson. That would be awesome.
The guy, well, it's not my message; it's from God. But the
I-
guy,
forgive
who
me, that's
is
what I
the
meant.
interim pastor, was there when they built the new sanctuary on the church, and John Whitehorn and his wife were the ones who actually built it with their money. So he is very proud of the building that is the new sanctuary, even though it's 30 years old. He's very protective of it, which is cool. But I said, you know what? If Jesus walked through this door right now, would he recognize this as a church, or would he recognize it as something totally different?
An organization.
Because Jesus never entered into a church. He preached in the synagogue, as far as we know, maybe one time.
Right.
Maybe one time.
And then
The
he
other
went
time
out.
was
Then he
turning
went out
over
to the
tables.
streets. He went out to the crowds. He got on a fishing boat on the shore. He went to where the people were.
That's right. And then he tried to run from them,
Yeah.
on the Sea of Galilee. But anyhow, the point is, no, we're not supposed to talk about religion here.
Well, we can cut all of this. I'm fascinated by just having there's two parts to this. Okay, the podcast is for the things we want to share. The other side of this is legitimately, I enjoy expand. I grew
Well, I
up.
probably
I
won't
do
cut
too.
this. This is more like just a commentary on this is opinion. This is
Yeah.
I'm saying that we don't want someone coming on here and being like, this is the only way to go to heaven. If
Well,
you don't do
that's
this, you're going to hell.
exactly
that
what
kind of
I'm
thing.
saying. So that's why I got
you,
quiet.
you have to be very, very careful when you start talking about like Gnostic texts and things like that, because
Yeah.
they fly very much against what we would refer to as standardized doctrine, which is why they were not
Standardized
accepted.
Christianity.
Yes,
standardized religion,
Yeah,
and put that-
Christian doctrine as established by the Council of Nicaea 1,000 years ago. That's saying like this is
1600 something.
yeah, like this is what we are going to approve as being the message moving forward.
Let's put a pin in that.
Yeah.
And let's go back to aliens. Because
Aliens.
you had well,
Well, they're kind of back in the same boat there.
you had a
Enoch,
Hey,
aliens.
there is, I'm not going to lie, there is some stuff. When I'm done with this book, I'll give you this book.
yeah.
okay?
Please do.
There's some stuff in some of these non-mainstream books, let's put it that way. I don't know how else you would explain it without, in the time period, straight up almost being alien.
Yeah.
And I'm
Well, the whole book of Enoch is like
yeah,
riding a UFO while on acid kind of thing. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
not that I've done either, but
yeah, no, but like,
But Enoch wasn't the only one.
right. I mean, you read the book of Revelation, that's an acid trip. That's an acid trip. I saw this thing.
John the Baptist.
This chariot coming out of heaven, and it had these spinny things, and then there was this thing, and it had like a head of this, and like feet of clay, and like you're sitting there like, bruh, you had a lot of mushrooms
Yeah.
or something.
Now
like,
you're gonna get me started on talking
all right,
about
no.
John.
Let's
don't
not do this. I want to do this. I want to do this.
I can get
I
John
don't-
on a Bible study.
I want to do this.
All right. So,
While I'm drinking scotch.
well,
Tell me. Tell us. Tell us.
please. I just want to make sure I say this. I mean no offense. I come from a very
does.
no.
Means
Hold
offense.
on. I come from a very very small cultish religion, as he says.
Okay.
I genuinely ask these kind of questions because I'm a student, right?
You're stupid?
Yeah, that too. I'm a student.
Oh, a student.
A student.
Okay.
And so when it comes to anything of religious interest, I try to soak it up and absorb it because I'm like, hey, if I can find one little kernel that helps me expand my own thinking, that's why. So please don't take any offense if I ever say anything that's like flies in face of doctrine. I don't mean to belittle anything. I just
No. There's a lady that I follow on TikTok. Yes, I said TikTok. She was on there the other day. She's a very nice lady, very good at delivering messages from God. She held up a can of Coors, said, "It's hot out here today. Psst, I think I'll have me a nice cool drink." Then she handed it off. Might have been to a Chickens or something. I don't know. And she says, "Really and truly, I don't drink beer. Now, I might have a wine once in a while. But to tell the truth, when I opened that beer, how many of y'all sent me to hell?
yeah,
It ain't nobody's business. It's
Right.
between her and God.
right.
Me and God."
Yeah, yeah. That's why I like to talk to people about. I try not to talk about current faith, current religion, current. I like the history. Like I said, like I love studying about like Jewish culture at the time that Jesus was alive because I think it expands upon what we believe today. If you read a story that you believe today and understand the deeper cultural significance of the parable of the story, I think that it expands your own faith. I tell people, I don't care what you believe. You need to find something to believe in. That's it. Like that is to me the greatest path towards any type of spiritual anything. We were talking about some of the linkings between cultures across the world and some of the similarities between not just their construction. Okay, we have cultures all over the world that started building pyramid type structures or anything else, but they also share a lot of religious stories, which they also share a lot of cultural stories, kind of going into aliens.
Similar stories, not just sharing stories, but similar stories.
Similar, beyond coincidence, similarities,
Like the flood myth.
like the
Yeah,
flood
flood
myth. And so I'm like, when you have,
It's a story, not a myth.
yeah, oh, exactly. When you have a group, not a group, when you have civilizations from all over the world around the same time period, building similar structures, telling similar stories, sharing similar faiths, myths, whatever, and then you add to that things like cryptids. Then you add to it things like sky spirits and travelers from afar and some of the ancient hieroglyphs that talk about things that came down and instilled us with knowledge, and the pyramids and the hieroglyphs of the guys walking through carrying lanterns and light bulbs and all this stuff, and you start going, man, science fiction isn't so science fiction anymore. And then when we go, well, we can explain it. And then the best explanation is just a Sunday special on the History Channel where you're like, okay, cool, but where's the facts? Well, we don't have facts. This is just how we think it happened. I'm like,
He's a science nerd.
he is a sciencey person. That's what I always call him.
But here's the problem. Science is nothing more than hypotheses that haven't been disproven.
No, that's a death ray.
No, that's a light bulb.
Yeah, like that's the hieroglyphs of the
Oh no, that's a light bulb.
yeah, like carrying a lantern, shining light. It's a flashlight.
There's no
It's
torch
not,
marks. There's no scorch marks in the pyramids.
What is it called?
There's no soot.
What is it called? What is it called?
was what called?
That bulb, that light bulb.
You mean like
The Egyptian battery.
the
The,
Baghdad battery?
Baghdad
yeah.
battery.
I love your dad. We literally
We watched the same History Channel special together.
Okay, well, let me back up. Remind me what I was talking about.
We were about to talk about UFO stories. You saw a UFO, you're going to share your story.
That's not what I was talking about.
we were talking about the similarities between cultures and some of their both architecture, religious beliefs, as well as
We were talking
myths.
about what he does for a living.
as
And
a
I said-
sciencey person.
As a sciencey person, and I said the problem with science is it's all hypothesis.
It's theories.
It's theories.
Yeah.
When it becomes true, it's not science anymore.
Right.
It's fact. Okay. So a lot of science, what are some of the sciences that you can say are fact?
Nothing can travel faster than the speed of light.
Okay. Gravity. It's
Right.
the law.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Everything else, pretty much hypothesis.
Right.
So when we start to apply science to anything,
Outside of just science.
yes, science. Oh my gosh, I'm going to say right here, okay, to test anything scientifically, you have to have two things, okay, a known, and what's
Talking
the
about
other
like the
thing?
scientific method.
And what is the other thing?
Like the unknown, like the
No, you got to have a known, a control sample.
oh, right.
Got to have a known and a control sample, and to do that with any kind
And be able
of
to replicate your data.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
If it's Blind Frog Ranch, if it's
Ape
Skinwalker,
Canyon.
Ape Canyon, whatever it is, if
Those
you're
are
gonna do any
repeatable
scientific
instances.
experiment,
Yeah.
you got to have something that's known, and you got to go with what's it called, replicable.
Right. Replicable event, I think is what they call it.
You
Like,
got to be able to recreate what you've
Consistently.
done consistently. Otherwise,
which is why it took
it's
them
a
so.
fluke.
That's why it took them so long to find the Higgs boson, the God particle, whatever.
Oh, yeah.
That's why it took them so long to find it. Was not because they didn't find it; they actually found it before, but they were having difficulties in replicating the events because they weren't entirely sure how it happened.
Right.
So they were like, "Okay, we think this is how it happened," and then they started searching for it because that's really like, how do you search for something you don't know that exists,
Could you imagine having been that guy
dude?
or that girl?
Oh yeah.
Hey, look
Well,
what
because like I
just
said, they're like,
found.
we have this thing, it's reacting this way, it shouldn't. And they were like, okay, well, what's causing that? And then that was what started the exploration of, okay, we're going to go looking for this thing. It has to be there. We can't explain it, and we don't know how to find it. So we're gonna have experiments to find it. And then that was when they said, I forget what year it was, we discovered the Higgs boson. The God particle
that's like
was
the,
not because they already knew it existed. It was just now trying to
What
replicate
was
it.
The SETI project when they got the code from what is that called?
I know, yeah.
Oh wow.
The WoW code.
The WoW code. Oh my God,
Can
yes.
you imagine being that guy?
I was alive for that.
Wow, what does that mean? Wow, what does that mean?
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
And they keep saying that that's not factual because why? Why is
Can't
that
be
being
replicated.
disproved? Because it can't be replicated. I'm like, how are you going to replicate a signal that we received? We have to wait to get it again. To which I say, good luck, because I guarantee you that's on the spam filter for Earth now.
One lady that I follow she talks about. She's a great storyteller, but I can't think of her name. She's on TikTok. She talks about different haunted places and spooky things and stuff like that. She posted something the other day. I believe it is in Utah, and I don't remember the place, but it's basically it's a multi level underground storage facility for missing persons. Okay. TikTok took down her video.
Dulce?
Huh? Dolce.
Sweet?
TikTok.
No, Dolce is in like
Dolce.
sweet?
No.
Dolce means sweet in Spanish.
Dulce, New Mexico.
Oh,
Supposedly an underground military base that's cohabited with alien representatives where they
And-
do human experimentation and other things.
And missing
so they
persons.
didn't agree to just cows.
No, I guess not. They did the white man treaty.
growing. I do have to edit this, just so
You
you
can
know.
cut whatever you want to, son.
We just make it more word for me, but growing somebody and doing experimentation is different than taking somebody from their car on the highway in the middle of the night.
So you're talking about like the cloning endeavors.
Yeah,
Right. Which is coincidentally coincides very, very conveniently with the time period of when everybody started like, let's clone sheep. Let's let's clone your dog now. Let's like,
You know what? That is true.
it's the same time period.
That's mid 80s.
Yeah. And then they had,
it was early 90s, I think.
well,
Really?
mid 80s is when they started hypothesizing about it. I think the first actual was Dolly. I'll never forget this.
Dolly the sheep.
Dolly the sheep. Let's see here. When was
believe
it? I think that
in
was like,
86.
oh, was it that long ago?
Check me.
Dolly?
Check me.
No, that was like 94, I think.
Not Dolly Parton. Just trying to.
Check me. Juan Carlos.
Born July 5th. How
Ah,
timely.
really?
Today is July 5th.
But what year?
Born July 5th, 1996.
Well, see, I was only 10 years off.
In
the whole time warp thing.
Scotland. I'm just saying, it's very convenient that around the time that some people, like you said, about 10 years before, start talking about the facilities in the middle of the desert where we supposedly are learning and figuring out how to clone human beings, which sounds crazy.
It does
Then-
sound crazy.
Yeah. And then 10
I'm
years
not a-
later, some dude in Scotland goes, I'm going to clone a sheep. And everybody's like, science.
I'm not sold on the whole Dulce thing. I don't really know that that's a real thing, but
I've never even heard of it, so I'll have to go.
Dolce.
Dolce. It means sweet.
Okay.
Dolce, yeah.
Dolce.
well, every documentary or podcast is always called it Dulce.
Well, it's
Dulce.
because they
so
don't
that's why.
speak Spanish.
Well, I
Even
don't
though it's in
either. I'm
Mexico,
sorry.
it's Dolce.
Yeah,
Okay.
Dolce.
Okay.
It's kind of like leche. It's
Yeah,
milk.
yeah.
Okay. I believe you.
Oh, you better.
Well, before I forget, if you like content like this, definitely check out our guest podcast YouTube channel. Please tell it again without the pause that Justin and I added.
Well, it's not, I guarantee, content like this, but
Well, no, but like you're on
I
here
do
sharing your
tell-
ideas. We
I
want to
do
share
tell
people
some
back.
stories. I've had interviews with people who have had experiences with different things, ghosts, paranormal activity, and Sasquatch. And if anybody has stories, my YouTube channel is Campfire Tales, Cryptids of America. And the email is campfiretalesofamerica@gmail.com. And you can send me the information, and I'll be happy to contact you. Or if you, I'll even try to read your story and try to do you justice in this story, because I can act like I'm scared too and stuff like that.
But the whole point of why we started doing this originally was I've had several people actually, like literally today, because we weren't going to film today. It's 4th of July weekend. We all had plans, and my plans kind of freed up. And honestly, I missed it. Like it was Friday night, and my brain all day at work, I was like, man, tonight I really want to like even if we're not going to record, maybe I'll just call Justin.
This is
And we'll
only
just-
like the fourth or fifth time we've done it too. Which
yeah,
is crazy.
but like I look forward to it. I miss it and I enjoy it. But when we started this endeavor was the point of the entire podcast. Today I have about 9 people that have reached out to me. They're like, when can we come on?
oh, nice.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, oh my god, that's like 2.5 months worth of like people, and, right? Because I'm thinking, I'm like, well, I don't want to make some of these people wait 2 months to come on and like share with us. But the point of why we started this was literally when people were like, all these 9 people were like, what do you want to talk about? I'm like, whatever you want to talk about. I mean, granted, the last few episodes we've kind of danced around this kind of stuff, but
It's fun.
but
Just
I
whatever,
want to give people some ideas of like what's to come. We have a really nice friend of ours that is into paleontology. He is a like, I don't know if the word board certified is the term, but he is a professor level educated paleontologist. And I would love to talk to him about some of the stuff he's interested in. We have my friend who is a board certified licensed doctor, and I would love to pick his brain about topics and conversations and things that he's interested in. I have a friend of mine that runs a barbecue business that he has started from the ground up, and just a good guy, good dad, very interested to talk to him. I have a friend that owns a brewery in the Waco area that wants to come on and just talk about owning a business and all of the fun side notes of brewing. In case you couldn't tell, I have a thing for brewing.
Well, I know I've been here before.
Yeah.
And just to say, I was Justin had me on his podcast one time, and it's cool to be on Justin's podcast.
Sure.
I enjoy it. And tonight he called me and said, "Hey, you want to be on this with us tonight?" And I'm like, "Heck yeah!" So I'm honored. And anytime you guys have nobody else that'll talk, just let me know and I'll come up.
Well, he and I talked about it several weeks ago. I was like, I'd really like to bring my dad on sometime.
Yeah.
Because he has, I mean, we had shared interests. That's why he came on the other podcast. We talked about that particular topic, which we don't go into here, but he has other interests. And I was like, I kept referring to him and his stories.
And that,
So
like, this
it's
is
just
the,
like, it just makes sense. Let's
wraps
just
it
get
up.
him on here
yeah.
and just have it, man.
I just want to clarify for the people who think we might be involved in something subverting. We're not. The other thing he's talking about is mushrooms.
Yeah. Yeah. Mushroom farmers.
Mushroom and the toadstools.
Well, yeah. Yeah. Mostly portobello,
Yeah,
some shiitake.
and some of those others.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So just to clarify, so nobody thinks like
Yeah.
mystic handshake, secret passages, word stuff. It's all about mushrooms, toadstools.
I love how much editing he's going to be doing. on
Yeah,
this one.
I'm just thinking about it.
But anyways,
you
if
edit
you
that?
if you thoroughly enjoy content like this with just random people discussing things that interest them, because our goal is to, first of all, I like learning about this stuff because, as I hope you've figured out, I don't know much about a lot of this, and I figure if I don't know a lot about this, somebody else doesn't.
Yeah.
So our goal is to bring some neat conversations, some neat people to have a conversation that we're going to let it go where it goes. Tonight we covered pretty much one topic for the majority of the night. There's other podcasts where we've had people on where we've gone from everything from yogurt to mysticism. How the hell we did that, I'd have to go back and rewatch. But we did. It was fun. Like I said, there are a couple of other people that we plan on having on. So please stay tuned, like and subscribe. That's a big part of it, because this might not be the episode for you. No, that's fine. If you're not into Bigfoot, cool. It's not going to be the only one. We're going to talk about other stuff too. We really want you to come along with us. This is a lot of fun. I mean, this is the most fun I have on a Friday night. This is what I want to do on a Friday night. So
Yeah.
But I wanted to say thank you so much for coming on, because
yeah.
we, like you said, you've come over before. We are friends. I really like hanging out with you, and I've always enjoyed talking with you
Well, I
about stuff.
appreciate that. This is the most fun I've had on a lot of nights.
Well, well,
I'm
any
retired, okay?
any night that you want.